Okay, so then we start. So welcome to everybody to the second day of Híbrides. I'm super happy to be here with you all. And this second day of Híbrides is related on the tensions and the relationships between the body and electronic interfaces. And of course, we want to thank the walk, the darts group, Enrique, and all the work team that has been supporting and that we have found like this super nice relationship with. So one of the main aims that we have as Axolot, as Ivan was saying yesterday, is to make these dialogues with other artists, other communities that are thinking also about the same or similar ideas that we have or same questions. So that's why we design or we propose to make this Híbrides encounter. That's why we made these residencies and that's why we made this open call. And one of the main aims is to, in proposing this topic, it was to explore how to artistic practices, how in the details of making artistic practices, in the details of thinking a performance and thinking how do you connect your microcontroller to your body, to a sensor, etc. How in the details we create questions and reflections on the socio-technical conditions in which we live. A context marked by rapidly accelerating technological development and facing the global crises that are faced by the diverse bodies. So we want to know how do other artists work, how do you relate with your tools, how do you think with your tools, with your body, with your context, with your practices. And we want to know how by participating and observing our own bodily experiences within the artistic practices can be part of an academic or non-academic research. So some of the questions that I share is like, how can a performance produce knowledge? How can connecting sensors, actuators, and microcontrollers to our body generate or contribute to the production of knowledge? How does the understanding of the tensions between our tools and ourselves during a performance, in these moments where you know your tool but you're in front of the public moving your body, how does that is creating meaningful research and meaningful interactions? No? What questions are being triggered? What definitions of subjectivity are being stated? How are the bodies and technologies being materialized or redefined during these processes? So we're going to start, so welcome. And we're going to start with the presentation and an interview to Lotta Stöver, who was part of the residencies here during 1 month. And then I just give the microphone to Roger. Thank you.
Gracias, Lali. Good afternoon. Today we have Lotta. She's an artist and a media arts teacher in Weimar, and she's one of our 2 first resident artists in Axolot. We are very happy to have you here with us. And first, I wanted to ask you about your what's your artistic background, and well, yeah, what's your project? What did you come to do here?
Thank you for the warm welcome. Usually my artistic practice is mostly installation art. I like to work with different materials and with electronics, so I'm usually more interested in making spaces that tell kind of a story, or making machines that correspond to stories or to research questions. Yeah, and the project that I'm doing here, it's called Local Positioning System. It's kind of a research into GPS and other GNSS. And it's a lot about those questions of positioning, like very pragmatically, like how to know where you are in terms of like this kind of like Cartesian space notions of a gridded space, but then also positioning as a kind of a political act, like where you have a certain stance that is kind of informed by your body, but is also like something that others might impose on you. Like when, for example, when someone else is using GPS to kind of track you, it's kind of an imposed position, but you can also position yourself. So like kind of different questions of positioning, and also questioning this global or local thing.
And where did this idea of the positioning system come from?
This kind of developed over the months that I'm here. It started as I'm interested in the GPS because it has this very intense military background, and I kind of applied with this like I want to do some research around the demilitarization efforts around the GPS. And then I quickly saw that actually the GPS is not demilitarized at all. It's still very much a military technology. And this kind of turned into, what kind of alternative ways can we think about how to position ourselves, and how can we focus more on the body, because the GPS basically just like 3 coordinates plus time, which is basically also very interesting. There's one thing I found out is that in order to calculate the position, like the GPS signals, they contain also a timestamp. So each time you receive a location token, or each time you receive a signal that contains the location info, it also sends the timestamp from the atomic clocks that are in the satellites of the either GPS or Galileo or other GNSS. Or for those who don't know, I also only recently found out that GPS is like one kind of global navigation system, like satellite system. And the US had their first, and it was initially a military project. But nowadays, like also, for example, Europe has their Galileo satellites, or Russia or Japan, they all have their own satellites. And most are accessible for everyone. But like when I say GPS, I most of the time actually mean GNSS, but especially GPS has a very strong military history because it comes from the US and it has been used a lot for locating targets in wars.
And that doesn't apply to GNSS?
No, it does. It does, of course. But just because GPS is longer, that's the oldest GNSS, it has the longest military history, I would say.
And how do you escape the military aspect of the positioning system in your project? Because I guess your project is about that, no? It's about escaping or avoiding the contact with the military positioning practice.
I think there's almost no escaping from it. And
so what's the point on doing the...
I mean, you can, of course, the GPS or other GNSS, they work not so well in buildings, for example, or you can obstruct the GPS signals, so you can become untrackable. Like there's this nice story of a trucker who has been, and his chef installed a GPS tracker in the truck, so he can see if his worker is, doing a proper job. And the trucker didn't want to be tracked, so he installed a GPS jammer, and then he can't be tracked anymore, and he could have a chill time. But every time he was passing by the airport, he was causing a lot of troubles with airplanes and stuff. And in the end, the trucker got into a lot of trouble, unfortunately. But that's one way how to escape the GPS, to just create a lot of electromagnetic noise with high voltage, for example, or just a GPS jammer.
And in your work, what do you do with the GPS information?
In my work, I'm walking a lot, so I'm using the GPS but it comes with this military history, and I'm not really trying to escape it, I would say. But I think it's more important to be aware of it, or to kind of make it a topic and speak about it rather than trying to get away from it. Yeah, and in my work, like part of my preparations for the performance were these. I was researching a lot about different texts that deal with questioning, like questions of positioning yourself, and then I was taking quotes from it that kind of condense the ideas of different ways of positioning, and then I was using the GPS tracker to kind of draw those quotes into the landscape.
I've seen that in, well, the maps that tracked, you wrote it on maps, like your positioning, you overlapped it on maps. And it reminded me, like many years ago, I read a book by Paul Auster, I believe, that there was a story of a guy who was walking the streets writing. He was a writer, but instead of writing on paper, he was writing by walking. And it related so much to your work. I wanted to ask if you were aware of this, and if it's related to that story.
No, this one I don't know.
Okay, well, I'll have to. I didn't get the quote. The book. I want to look it up because I think it's a really poetic way of.
It's a whole book.
Yeah, the story is about this. Is about a guy that rides on the street, and I think it's very. Like when I saw your maps, like written, and they're also very poetic. The one that you were walking through the Gothic, and then in L'Eixample the words were very tight, very tidy, and very clean. And then you go in the word subjectivity, and then that goes through the Gothic, and then it kind of gets like a wrinkle. That's so poetic. It's beautiful. And do you have a methodology to tackle this questioning?
You mean methodology for what? For tackling?
Well, artistically, how do you approach the project?
I think I don't have so much like that one fixed methodology. In the beginning, it's just trying out a lot of different stuff and working with a little bit safely with the things I know already, like working with microcontrollers, and I'm using processing a lot for programming different things.
So you use open source software for all your artwork?
That's a good question.
Or at least do you try to do it?
Yeah, of course I try. Okay. There's some Adobe, unfortunately, involved. Like InDesign is very hard to substitute.
You have to put a lot of effort not to use commercial software.
Yeah.
And is all your work open source as well? Like all the code that you write and everything, is it do you have a public repository or something where people can access it?
This is something that I'm working on at the moment. I think it's a very nice question, because a lot of the things I'm actually not so sure if it's like interesting for other people. So I'm like, can it be?
Well, I'm sure we can find someone. I mean, there's a lot of people in the world, so I'm sure.
Yeah, what I started doing now is I have my website with like the usual artist portfolio, blah blah, and then I started doing a blog to kind of show behind the scenes of different projects, and then there I also publish source code, or I think what's actually more interesting or useful for other people is publish components of artworks, so like different open SCAD sketches, so people can kind of take the mechanical designs of parts that I did and use them for whatever they like. Or
so it's open source and open hardware as well, no?
Yeah.
Okay, and have you used code from other like public bases? Okay.
Yeah. I think that's,
who doesn't?
I mean, Arduino, ESP32, all this processing.
And well, this is kind of tied to the first question I asked about where the idea came from, but your conceptual tools, the ones you work around, are they your own? I mean, did you come out with these questions? Are these questions that you stumbled upon somewhere?
Yeah, definitely. It's not like I'm just randomly coming up with them. like one big reference that I keep coming back to is the artist Martin Haus, and he has very interesting artistic practice around like the coming to, or like the connection of geology, media, and also a little bit esoteric side of seeking the psyche in different technological devices or media. And he, like a few years ago, he did this work, the psychogeophysics walker, which is referencing the psychogeography and the situationist, so like this attempt of walking through the city in unconventional ways to kind of challenge expectations about the city, and then through that generate qualitative data and kind of qualitative, like through experiences that are unusual in the city. And yeah, and he kind of turned the psychogeographics into psychogeophysics, and like one of his projects, like this psychogeophysics walker, where he's trying to find connections between the psyche or like different emotional states, the space, and the electromagnetic spectrum, where he's kind of like having different body sensors, like the galvanic skin response sensor to measure how sweaty it is, or like he has like this EEG, like the, basically the brain sensor. Yeah, and then he walks around on his walker and maps out his emotional states and the electromagnetic spectrum in different areas and tries to find if there's a connection. And this I like a lot.
And do you also apply this kind of emotional part to your work as well, or you're more on the physical side of things?
I also tried, like when I have like this custom PCB, which only arrived very late, so I couldn't use it too much. But I'm also measuring the pulse and also the skin sweatiness while walking. But so far you can't see too much other than when I exit the space, I'm more sweaty than when I get cold, and then I'm less sweaty. So it doesn't say too much. Yeah, but that's what I'm using at the moment.
And would you give us a hint, I don't know if, well, without spoiling it, about what you'll be doing tonight at the performances? I don't know if you'll explain it there. If you're going to explain it there, maybe just give like a headline or something, because I mean, we don't want to do the same thing twice, but
yeah.
So people here, if they weren't planning to come, so you can tease them and
yeah,
they can all be there.
It's gonna be fun. Also, not just me is going to perform, also Aijan and Shelly Knotts and someone else. Like there's going to be 4 performances, so I think it's free entry, right?
Yeah. Al convent de Sant Agustí.
Yeah. Yeah, I have prepared a performance that kind of summarizes what I found out during the research in the residency, and there's like 6 different chapters of the GPS and the local positioning system that turned out of it. And also I'm going to show the drawings that I did, like the walking drawings. There are some that are like 1 hour standing still, or like walking a straight line for 1 hour, which didn't turn out straight at all. There are some that involve two days of walking. Yeah.
So you've made quite a lot of exercises, you know.
Yeah.
I suppose you came here with some questions, like artistic questions. Has the process arised new questions?
I think one question that I have in almost like all of my works is like this trying to work with data in a kind of embodied and embedded way. And I think this I don't know how to summarize it. But I worked a lot with it while walking and seeing how the body can kind of be a carrier of data, and like this idea of data is not some kind of disembodied or doesn't have materiality kind of thinking, which I always hear in theory, but it's also yeah, for me that's something that I've kind of learned to work with during the residency. And also one big thing that I kind of developed from, like that I actually was just now brave enough to do, is like to do performance. So it's actually the first time I'm doing a performance. And so, yeah, installation artist has to move.
And what's your next step then? Performing?
Yeah, today performing.
But in the long run, I mean, when you go back to your artistic practice, where are you headed now?
I think I will definitely take a lot of new insights and also new impressions with me when I go back. Also not just from what I did, also just seeing the Axolot Collective and seeing just a different environment. I got a lot of I met a lot of inspiring people and got a lot of new ideas and how to say this, like a lot of new impulses.
Okay, and what's so different about your regular environment?
I come from an art school where they have a very strong position on making installation art, which I think I still enjoy a lot, and also making installation art in a way that it's procedural and kind of that it's a process and not very static, and it's very hard to sell by that, which I like a lot. But still, I was in touch with performance so much before, and it's the first time I'm actually seeing people do live coding, which is super inspiring to see. I'm very excited.
Does that mean that you'll start live coding, or?
No, but maybe it means I will go to more live coding things.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. And now kind of a tricky question. Why do you do art?
I think it's the only thing I want to do.
That's a very good answer. Thank you very much. I think we kind of ran out of time, so we're going to go on. Well, I thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much for your
and for I've heard, like, I wasn't here during your residency, but everything I heard, well, from you and from Aijan, it was great. So we're very happy to have had you both here. And it was a pleasure, so thank you very much. And I guess I can say it in the name of Axolot, no? On behalf of Axolot, that we're very happy that you were here. We're very pleased with the work you did. And, well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, too, for having me. I had such a good time.
Great. Sitlali?
Okay, so thank you very much, Roger and Lotta. So now we're gonna start the oral presentations, which we have 5 oral presentations from Joan Soler and Paloma Díaz, Marc Villanueva, Pedro González, Yolanda Uriz, y Marc Farid. Joan Soler.
Vale, se sent? Molt bé, hola. We're going to do this presentation in Catalan. If anyone has then questions or something that we're happy to talk about later. Molt bé, doncs abans de començar llenço una peça de la que parlarem d'aquí una mica. Vale? És una peça, no és live coding, però està passant a temps real. So it's real time, not live coding, però... Aquí. Bé, som en Joan i la Paloma, som membres de DART, se n'ha parlat alguna estona, estem molt contents d'estar aquí i gràcies al col·lectiu Axolot per organitzar amb nosaltres i organitzar tot això. I també no puc estar-me de dir gràcies pel respecte que teniu per la llengua catalana, perquè tota la UOC n'hauria d'aprendre d'això, perquè no és tan fàcil que a Barcelona et deixin fer les coses com vols. Bé, presentem aquest projecte, aquesta xerrada es diu Inhabiting the Hybrid Project Catalog. Per què un catàleg de projectes? Bé, presentem un catàleg de projectes com a part d'una metodologia. No és pels projectes en si, sinó pel que representen. Inhabiting the Hybrid bla 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 és un projecte de recerca en el que estem diverses persones de l'equip de d'arts que parla, com l'Enric, que bé, el que vol investigar és, penseu el context postpandèmia, les dinàmiques, la importància de l'espai limítrofe, de l'espai del límit entre allò físic i allò virtual, el material, el real i virtual, virtual no virtual, etc. I sobretot posant sobre la taula la idea de que des de l'art digital, des del principi s'ha treballat amb tecnologies de maneres a vegades molt pioneres, normalment abans que arribin al gran públic, i l'art digital i l'art en general pot aportar moltíssim a com fem servir les tecnologies, a com les hem d'entendre, com ens hem de relacionar amb les tecnologies abans no arribin les grans corporacions i ens imposin maneres de funcionar. I per tant aquest projecte va de com ha treballat això l'art i què podem entendre de l'art, d'aquest context que imaginàvem una mica més marcat híbrid, però del que tornarem per les crisis que ens venen i en les que estem, en què hem d'aprendre més a treballar tant online com en físic, en local i global i connexions i aquestes coses. I bé, és un projecte que parla de, deixeu-me mirar les notes que no em despisti, que parla de la recerca basada en la pràctica, de la pràctica artística com a recerca i per tant l'art com a generador de coneixement, l'art digital com deia com a pioner i que investiga quines són les metodologies artístiques, què vol dir fer coneixement, generar coneixement des de l'art. I entenem partim que la idea, que estic segur que tots hi estem d'acord, que la divisió real-virtual dels anys 90 l'hem superat de sobres, estem en un espai, en un funcionament més d'hibridació, perdoneu el només Embodiment, però és a dir, busquem anar més enllà també d'aquestes idees del cos i això, sinó realment com estem vivint o com podem entendre que ens relacionem amb aquests dos espais, i hem triat una interpretació restrictiva del concepte per forçar les coses. I hem anat a parar, la idea de presentar-ho així és una mena de metodologia que en el fons és bastant artística, de tenim una idea, ens mirem una sèrie de projectes, els investiguem, veiem com juguen amb aquesta idea i forcem la tornada al concepte de manera que el problematitzem, el refinem i donem una idea, en el fons una mena d'aproximació artística a la recerca, al fet científic de la recerca, si m'ho permeteu. I, bé, Paloma.
Com deia el Joan, el que hem fet és seleccionar 18 projectes principalment, més tenim 2 més annexos. Som 10 de realitat expandida i 10 projectes d'altres formats d'art digital. Per nosaltres serà molt important no caure en les definicions de híbrides, diguem, clàssiques, i una de les coses que més ens ha costat és trobar autores, i ara ja tenim 8 autores, 8 autors i 4 peces fetes en col·laboració. Projectes que van ser creats els primers, el 1971 i fins ara. Els autors són tant catalans, canadencs, mexicans, dels Estats Units, del Japó. Realment la recerca per trobar-los ha sigut intensa, perquè el que sí que volíem era que fossin peces presentades, estudiades en congressos, en simpòsiums, que no fos qualsevol cosa. No pretendíem fer simplement sumar projectes, sinó buscar els que millors fossin per a aquest projecte, perquè tal com ha parlat ell, una de les coses és que a dins de l'acadèmia a vegades les coses són massa forçades. Doncs aquí el que volíem era sobretot anar canviant que havia més que canviant, actualitzant aquest concepte d'hibridació. Alguns dels projectes us sonaran perquè són clàssics, altres, tenim aquí una protagonista que ens podria parlar més d'ells, del seu, però sobretot insistim en que ha sigut molt complicat trobar aquesta línia de fusió actualitzada del que desitgem que no sigui simplement explicar el que és treballar presencial amb una web, per exemple. Les obres que tenim actualment hem agafat des del Paul Sermon, Stellar, Lozano Hemer, Michel Teran, moltes d'elles les coneixereu, però hem fet aquí una selecció per mostrar-vos algunes de les que ens interessaven. Com aquesta que el 1992 el Paul Sermon va mostrar i demostrar la interacció entre les persones que es trobaven a milers de quilòmetres i sobretot la interacció, l'empatia i l'entendre aquest espai entre empatia i espai real. En un moment en què la gent no estava ni acostumada a fer servir una web. Altres més actuals, com aquesta de la Linson, Vertighost, realment surt d'una narració de Vértigo. És d'una escena de Vértigo des de la que l'artista el que ha fet és una narració en la que la protagonista d'aquest recorregut realment no és la protagonista d'una narració, sinó que és l'element d'investigació d'aquesta narració. L'artista el que vol és veure què fa, com es relaciona, etc. A més, amb una sèrie de webs i d'arxius que van al costat d'aquesta història. Com anem de temps?
Llavors, totes aquestes peces el que busquem és que treballin de maneres diferents i com treballen en aquest espai híbrid. En aquest cas és com bastant evident, és una peça de realitat virtual en la qual hi ha una actriu i mentre la persona està veient aquests dibuixos veu una mare, la que representa que és la seva mare dibuixada, l'actriu l'agafa, l'acompanya cap al llit, l'acompanya cap a un lloc de dibuixar i hi ha tot el contacte físic que és bastant interessant des del punt de vista virtual. I aquesta és una peça d'en Roc Parés que és molt més senzilla a nivell tècnic però molt potent a nivell conceptual i a nivell d'il·lustrar què podem entendre com a virtualitat també. Perquè en el fons aquesta peça el que fa és molt simple. Tu puges en aquesta aquí dalt, això, poses el cap aquí, mires i et veus a tu mateix, a temps real, fas així i et veus a tu i alhora veus un vídeo d'ell, de l'artista, que agafa aquesta destral, ve cap a tu i la pica allà on tens el cap. I tu veus, amb un ull veus una imatge i amb l'altre ull veus l'altra. I el teu cervell ho barreja, però una mica la il·lustració que ens serveix aquí és com el virtual no cal que sigui una cosa... Al final el virtual és el que no toquem, el que no hi ha ara. Aquí el virtual és el rock mateix, l'espai mateix, però en un altre temps. I la barreja és molt interessant.
En aquesta en la que s'han fotografiat, s'ha creat en realitat virtual des d'unes imatges reals, veiem com existeix una fusió entre la realitat virtual i les gravacions, unes accions que són totalment quotidianes de la vida real. Està feta en fotogrametria, que nunca em surt. En aquesta el que ens ha cridat molt l'atenció és tant que parlem de la intel·ligència artificial, què passa si a la performer que està actuant durant tot el dia la dirigeix una IA, però una IA que és com una consciència però positiva. Tant que parlem de tecnologies dolentes i una mica apocalíptiques, aquesta és com un àngel de la guarda.
Doncs això, tenim 18 obres que en el projecte ens serveixen per això i vam decidir afegir-hi un annex, és a dir, dues obres que hi són d'una altra manera, una mica. Una és aquesta, que és un projecte molt interessant també de la Lee Hersman Liston, que es diu Roberta Brightmore, que és un projecte predigital o no digital, que comença l'any 71, durant els 70s ho fa bastant, però ella el té com a... perquè vaig fent coses. És un alter ego que va començar com a una performance de la mateixa artista, crea un personatge i aquest personatge acaba, ell explica, diu, va tenir una targeta de crèdit abans que la pogués tenir jo. I també posa un anunci per llogar pisos, s'entrevista amb la gent, té una manera de vestir-se, una manera de passejar. Per tant, d'alguna manera és una mena de virtualitat també. En el fons és una mena de personatge virtual, però absolutament ancorat al món real. I també era una manera de veure aquesta poètica i aquesta amplitud que intentem donar i forçar una mica el concepte de virtualitat. I després, mira, perquè a vegades pots fer aquestes coses, he posat una obra meva, però perquè té sentit perquè ha estat creada en el context, en aquest cas també és a l'annex, però ha estat creada en el context de la investigació mateixa. És una peça que vol jugar amb això, integrar molt bé, molt fort el que és l'espai real i el que és l'espai virtual. És una peça d'art generatiu però que només té sentit en el lloc on està exposada, perquè és una peça que el que busca és fondre la virtualitat d'un dibuix que està fent un ordinador a temps real amb la materialitat d'una paret que té tota una història darrere, perquè és justament d'un edifici recuperat on hi ha una capa que veieu aquí de color blau, aquí es veu molt poc però aquí hi ha després veureu alguna foto, unes guixades, això és una capa de pintura, això és una capa que hi havia a sobre, que n'han guardat un tros, en el qual hi ha guixades de la gent que havien treballat en això que era una adoberia, una fàbrica de pell. I una mica el dibuix hi fa també una mena de pell aquí sobre i fa, ara ja no sé on soc, aquí, i fa això, juga amb els colors que hi existeixen, fonent el que s'està projectant amb el blau aquest que es conserva de la paret, juga amb el dibuix, això és el dibuix de la paret que hi havia i el dibuix que s'hi va fent a sobre, aquí es veuen els píxels ja directament, i també juga molt amb la textura de la paret, jugant a que es confongui què és el color que hi havia a la paret, què és el color que s'hi està projectant, quin dibuix és el que hi havia, quin dibuix i quina textura és la que s'hi està posant ara. I per acabar, això està fet en processing també, per acabar tornarem a visitar la peça que he engegat abans de començar la xerrada, a veure en quin estat està i va fent el seu rotllo i com us deia, aquesta és només la part digital de l'obra, l'obra té sentit allà, en aquella paret en concret, però bueno, aquí en tenim un tros. Moltes gràcies.
Gràcies.
Ok, thank you. Muchas gracias, Joan y Paloma. Y continuamos. Vamos a hacer la sesión de preguntas y respuestas. We're going to make the questions and answers when the presentations end. So we have like a moment to discuss all the presentations. So welcome. This is Marc and
Bona tarda i, perdoneu, no sé si he arribat tard o he arribat massa d'hora perquè hauria molat molt arribar just ara, no? Perdó, és que pensava que començava més tard, en fi, no passa res, he arribat. Res, gràcies, jo soc en Marc i una miqueta volia compartir amb vosaltres un parell de reflexions. Jo vinc del món de les arts escèniques i també molt en la relació entre arts escèniques i tecnologies digitals. I bàsicament el que m'agradaria fer avui és compartir uns pensaments que permeten a veure com creem com a artistes per l'escena, com des del punt de vista més performatiu, però també com dissenyem tecnologies, com apliquem tecnologies. And for those who don't understand Catalan, I'm sorry that I'm going to present it in Catalan, but we can also have some time for discussion later if you want, if you kind of get some interest in the vibe of it. Doncs no, a mi m'agrada començar per la idea que moltes vegades es pensa o de vegades queda reflectit així en mitjans, etc., que les tecnologies s'inventen sense saber per què serveixen, abans que ningú tingui gaire clara quina és la idea, i després la comunitat artística, cultural, va darrere, intentant descobrir usos o trobar maneres d'utilitzar aquelles tecnologies. D'alguna manera també crec que aquesta trobada va una mica d'això, de dir, d'acord, doncs la intel·ligència artificial, quins temes proposa, quins problemes planteja i com des del punt de vista més artístic, experimental, etc., ens podem com a posar al dia, com a anar al darrere d'aquesta tecnologia que sembla que ens va per davant. Jo m'agradaria dir que jo crec que és el contrari. Crec que sempre és l'art i la cultura la que va per davant de la tecnologia i perquè una cosa es pugui realitzar tecnològicament, primer s'ha hagut d'imaginar. I això és una mica el punt de partida d'aquest conjunt de pensaments que tenen a veure amb una qüestió que és molt important, que són les metàfores. Les metàfores que fem servir per entendre una tecnologia determinada i de vegades buscar quina és la història d'aquelles metàfores o quines altres metàfores ens poden ajudar a pensar quan algunes les consumim de manera potser massa directa o massa fàcil. De vegades jo... Bé, ara us ho explico. Diguem que una de les coses que preocupa més quan es pensa en intel·ligència artificial té a veure que no sabem què està passant exactament. Per això també l'aposta per els datasets més petits, per controlar millor el que estem alimentant, els processos, la programació, etc. Però des d'un punt de vista més públic, moltes vegades sembla que és el fantasma de la caixa negra, la intel·ligència artificial com una caixa negra. Llavors m'agradaria pensar una mica juntes sobre què significa o quines implicacions té aquesta metàfora tan especial com és la metàfora de la caixa negra. Clar, ja us he dit abans, jo vinc del món de les arts escèniques. En arts escèniques una caixa negra és una altra metàfora que d'entrada sembla que no tingui absolutament res a veure amb tecnologia. El concepte de caixa negra de fet defineix un tipus d'arquitectura teatral que normalment s'associa com el teatre experimental a partir dels anys 50-60, és a dir, del segle XX, evidentment, sobretot Peter Brook, quan teoritza sobre l'espai buit, o J.C. Grotowski, sobre el teatre pobre. En tots els casos, i amb molta altra pràctica de teatre experimental d'aquells anys, hi ha una fugida, diguem, del que seria més el teatre burgès, tot aquell teatre de cortinatges, de falses perspectives, il·lusionisme, naturalisme, etc., cap a una caixa negra, és a dir, un contenidor purament molt neutre, en certa manera, o que es presenta com molt neutre, en què el públic està a la mateixa alçada, normalment, que els intèrprets, no hi ha un fossat per l'orquestra, l'escenari no està aixecat, sinó que totes estem dins d'aquesta caixa negra. I el més important d'aquesta caixa negra és que es desenvolupa gràcies a la relació amb la tecnologia, perquè per poder treballar amb una caixa negra és necessari que hi hagi electricitat. O, com abans de l'electricitat, control de la il·luminació, amb llum de gas, etc. Això s'ha de poder controlar. Al moment en el qual tu pots controlar la il·luminació escènica, pots començar a treballar amb aquest tipus de dispositius teatrals. Això el que permet és també treballar d'una manera molt més efectiva l'aparició, la màgia, la sorpresa, és a dir, tota una sèrie d'efectes que en realitat tenen molt a veure amb el concepte tecnològic de la caixa negra. I un altre concepte que també impregna tota aquesta modernitat teatral que es troba en la caixa negra és també el concepte d'habilitat, o sigui, l'habilitat que tenen els artistes per buscar l'essència, despullar el teatre de tot allò que és accessori, de tots els ornaments i buscar l'essència, la performativitat del cos, normalment, la performativitat de l'espai, la performativitat de la llum, etc. Però fer això requereix un acte d'investigació, de recerca, d'aprofundiment, en què és aquest llenguatge, què és el llenguatge del cos, què és el llenguatge de l'espai, què és el llenguatge de la comunicació amb el públic. Això és com es troba tant a la base de Peter Brook com de Grotowski, que ambdós van, en certa manera, voler buscar l'essència de la interpretació, despullar el teatre de tot el que es considerava artificiós per descobrir un nou artifici, i d'aquest artifici del cos que comunica o aquest artifici de l'espai que comunica. Molt bé, quan parlem de tecnologia sembla que la metàfora de caixa negra no tingui res a veure. Ja veurem que sí, Bueno, jo crec que sí. Però, bàsicament, la descripció típica de la caixa negra en tecnologia és aquesta, és a dir, tenim un input que es converteix, això ja ho sabeu, però tenim un input que es converteix en un output i no sabem exactament de quina manera, perquè la manera com es dona aquest procés queda tancada dins d'aquesta caixa negra. O sigui, per exemple, diguéssim, això és com el que hi hauria, per exemple, dins d'una caixa negra, i si jo, per exemple, executo aquest codi d'aquí, cada paraula que digui serà automàticament traduïda en el seu significat completament oposat. Evidentment, no he fet res, no he executat cap programa, l'únic que he fet ha estat passar diapositives, és a dir, que no hi ha la tecnologia implicada, però bàsicament això és teatre, no? Clar, quan no sabem aquest input per què es transforma en un output, això fa el procés tecnològic totalment indistingible de la màgia. En aquest sentit estem molt a prop de la caixa negra teatral. No? És igual si estem fent servir intel·ligència artificial o no, és igual si estem executant el codi de processing o no, mentre establim la convenció entre nosaltres que això està passant. Tenim ganes de creure-hi i, per tant, hi creiem. Clar, què passa una mica més endavant en el temps, anys 60-70? Insisteixo, els artistes sempre van per davant de la tecnologia. En el terreny artístic es produeix una migració de el teatre experimental que en els anys 50 havia descobert la caixa negra, de cop i volta comença a trobar que aquesta caixa negra és massa artificial i busca una relació més immediata amb el públic i una relació més immediata amb la cosa. Despullar l'artifici encara més del que ja ho estava i és el moment en què primer són els museus, sobretot el MoMA, que als anys 20 ja utilitza com aquesta idea del white cube, del cub blanc, i progressivament en els anys 60-70 els artistes i les artistes de performance comencen a actuar cada vegada més en espais que es constitueixen com a un cub blanc. Això sobretot té molt a veure amb tot el que és la dansa postmoderna, que per exemple vol fugir de l'habilitat. El postulat màxim de la dansa postmoderna és que qualsevol ho pot fer i per això també totes les seves peces tenen a veure amb accions quotidianes, repetides en bucle, peces per no professionals, partitures de tasques senzilles, és a dir, tot aquest univers de qualsevol persona pot fer això, no és necessari una formació artística, no són necessaris anys de recerca, no és necessari tancar-se dins de la foscor de la caixa negra, sinó que dins d'aquest espai de màxima visibilitat podem simplement fer visible la vida i aquest nou artifici que es defineix per aquesta immediatesa. Clar, gir tecnològic, no? Doncs el moment en què, per exemple, Apple abraça l'estètica del blanc i canvia l'imaginari de la tecnologia com a caixa negra en aquest nou imaginari de la tecnologia com una caixa blanca, el cub blanc. I jo crec que això té molt a veure amb el que estan fent els artistes de performance just en aquell moment. Crec que, en certa manera, Apple està imitant això per acostar-se a aquesta altra subjectivitat. Evidentment, el pas de la subjectivitat del negre al blanc és com claríssim des del disseny de la interfície, és a dir, que també passem d'aquesta interfície de text en què cal saber tenir coneixements profuns d'informàtica per poder executar un ordinador, com a mínim això és el que sembla, cal estar investigant la profunditat de la màquina en aquestes interfícies gràfiques que en certa manera estan com encoratgen molt més la interacció. Per això, de cop i volta, la publicitat d'Apple és pràcticament la publicitat d'una companyia de dansa postmoderna, en què ens diu que és un ordinador que pot fer servir absolutament tothom i això per mi és molt important. Només que puguis com a apretar, només que puguis com a clicar o apuntar, ja pots fer servir un Macintosh. Clar, tornem al concepte de caixa negra. Aquest concepte de caixa negra, sabeu que qui l'introdueix és Norbert Wiener, des del camp de la cibernètica, als anys 40, i paral·lelament, no em consta que mai treballessin junts, però jo crec que és molt rellevant que fossin estrictament contemporanis, mentre Norbert Wiener estava teoritzant sobre l'àmbit de la cibernètica, trobem també a Burgos Friedrich Skinner, en teoria allunyat de la tecnologia, però el coneixeu des del punt de vista de la psicologia conductista. Skinner es dedicava a fer aquells experiments en què bàsicament intentava entrenar animals, sobretot uns pobres ratolins i sobretot uns coloms, perquè aprenguessin comportaments i els poguessin replicar. Tant Wiener com Skinner treballaven sobre caixes, en el cas de Wiener sobre aquesta caixa metafòrica, la caixa negra, en el cas de Skinner ell va desenvolupar el seu propi mecanisme que es coneix com la caixa de Skinner. I en tots dos casos, que a més tots dos van treballar per l'exèrcit dels Estats Units en diferents projectes, el tema fonamental de la seva investigació era el control, o sigui, com entendre i com aconseguir el control efectiu sobre els individus, sobre els animals, sobre els sistemes de comunicació, en definitiva, aconseguir el control. Aquesta cita de Wiener ens ho deixa bastant clar i, a més, la idea de canviar el comportament, que és la clau de Skinner també. Anem a Skinner, la caixa de Skinner, també coneguda com la cambra de condicionament operatiu, sistema operatiu. Aquesta caixa de Skinner era bàsicament aquest dispositiu. Skinner la va anar refinant, va anar fent molts experiments, hi ha moltes versions d'aquesta caixa de Skinner, però la més famosa consisteix en una caixa tancada en la qual hi ha un colom o un altre animal, però sobretot coloms, que ha d'interactuar amb una interfície tecnològica a partir de diferents elements, a partir de botons, a partir de palanques, a partir de maniveles, balances, és a dir, té com a diferents instruments de control i bàsicament el que s'intenta és que el colom aprengui per reforç conductual. Ara estem parlant d'intel·ligència artificial i sembla que justament el reforç conductual és un dels mecanismes principals per l'aprenentatge de la intel·ligència artificial en la majoria de sistemes que coneixem, com a mínim els que jo conec. De manera que també això a mi sempre em desperta com una gran pregunta, és a dir, estem intentant educar la intel·ligència artificial com si estiguéssim educant un d'aquests coloms de Skinner, amb un model psicològic conductista dels anys 50 que ja sabem que és profundament feixista? No sé, potser sí. Total, Skinner va descobrir moltes coses molt importants. Una de les coses més importants que descobreix Skinner és que ell intenta primer veure si el colom és capaç d'aprendre una sèrie de seqüències a través del càstig. Cada vegada que s'equivoca en la seqüència d'exercir rep una descàrrega elèctrica. Però se n'adona que aquest sistema de modificació conductual és efectiu. Però descobreix que la recompensa és molt més efectiva que el càstig. És a dir, si en comptes d'una descàrrega elèctrica quan s'equivoca el colom rep un trosset de sucre quan l'encerta, resulta que el colom aprèn molt més ràpid i té moltes ganes de tornar-ho a intentar, perquè li interessa molt aquesta promesa del sucre. Una lliçó que clarament han après tots els desenvolupadors de videojocs per mòbils i altres sistemes addictius que es basen exactament en això que descobreix Skinner. I un dels experiments més interessants de Skinner jo crec que és precisament una cosa que ell... Hi ha un moment en el qual trenca la relació entre execució d'accions i recompensa. És a dir, ell programa la recompensa perquè sigui... Ell posa una sèrie de palanques que no fan res i programa la recompensa perquè sigui totalment aleatòria. La hipòtesi de Skinner és quan el colom se n'adoni que les seves accions no produeixen res en el seu entorn, deixarà de fer-ho i simplement esperarà que li arribi el menjar, perquè el menjar arriba tant si el colom fa alguna cosa com si no fa res. Per la sorpresa de Skinner, el colom fa tot el contrari. El colom es torna boig, es converteix en un colom hiperactiu, comença a fer coses absurdes, increïbles, que mai havia fet, comença a saltar sobre una pota, comença a girar en cercles, comença a volar amunt i avall, i de cop i volta Skinner se n'adona que el colom, bàsicament, descobrir que no té cap control, està intentant fer coses rares a veure si descobreix com controlar aquella situació. Aleshores, Skinner, amb un gir característicament colonialista, diu això és com quan la gent fa danses de la pluja i fa com coses absurdes per aconseguir que una cosa que no té control passi. Però el que m'agrada molt és que Skinner en això li diu la superstició del colom, que em sembla un concepte preciós i que també té a veure amb el fet de quan no estem controlant allò que està passant, quan la incertesa creix entre allò que creiem que passarà i allò que efectivament passa, en comptes de ser apàtics, de sobte som més actius i per tant més consumidors. Es dispara el nostre intent. Jo crec que totes hem tingut els últims anys una superstició del colom brutal interactuant amb tots els models d'intel·ligència artificial que anaven apareixent, perquè hi havia aquesta cosa de fins on pot arribar, què estem fent quan estem tocant això. I aquí tornem a la paradoxa una miqueta del Macintosh. Tot buscant aquesta idea del cub blanc i de la transparència s'acaba creant una caixa negra encara més negra que l'original, perquè evidentment intentar reparar un Macintosh és una tortura i de la mateixa manera intentar esbrinar què està passant dins d'un gran model d'intel·ligència artificial doncs també és bastant impossible. Davant d'això podem fer poques coses més que ballar la dansa de la pluja del colom. Un exemple d'aquesta desconnexió per mi també és això, que ho vaig descobrir fa un temps en un institut de secundària, tenien aquests objectes, no sé si els coneixeu, però són objectes antiestrès. Bàsicament és com la sublimació del típic clic-clic-clic del boli quan estàs a classe, però en aquest cas, en comptes de tenir el clic-clic-clic del boli, tens una sèrie d'interfícies que emulen interfícies digitals. Tens un joystick, tens una botonera, tens com un fader, tens un interruptor, I aquí, evidentment, el que busca tota aquesta retòrica, aquest petit objecte, és el fet que ens estem tornant tan dependents de la interacció, d'aquest desig d'interactuar, que fins i tot, al final hi ha un punt en què aquesta interacció esdevé compulsiva. I l'única manera de relaxar el nostre desig insaciable de més interacció, de més resultats, de més sucre, consisteix en anar clicant tota l'estona uns botons que no serveixen per res. Jo crec que aquí també hi ha una superstició del colom en la qual, bé, aquesta cosificació, que algú hagi vist el nínxol de mercat d'això, em sembla com entre tendre i terrorífic, però jo moltes vegades em reconec anant amunt i avall de pestanyes del meu ordinador, obrint mails que no cal obrir, etc. Com intentant invocar que passi alguna cosa que tanmateix no ha de passar allà i no passa. I per acabar us volia, pensant en com aquests dispositius, passant de la caixa negra en el cub blanc, en la caixa de Skinner, com aquests dispositius modelen subjectivitats concretes, sí que us volia ensenyar el projecte que l'anunci d'un prototip que va dissenyar Skinner per l'exèrcit dels Estats Units, que consistia en míssils no teledirigits, sinó míssils dirigits per coloms. Això no es va dur mai a terme, per sort, però es deia Project Orcon. Us deixo aquí unes imatges. I bàsicament el projecte Orcon consisteix en què Skinner proposava posar com una peça metàl·lica, un tros de ferro en el bec dels coloms, que seria, després es fixava el colom, aquesta peça metàl·lica seria una part conductora i llavors s'entrenava el colom a picar, a clicar insistentment sobre un punt. Recompensa? Molt de recompensa, antidepressius a tope, i una altra vegada el punt, i apa, vinga. Llavors aquest punt, un cop el colom aprèn a clicar sobre el punt, se substitueix cada vegada per una imatge més difusa, o sigui, aquí hi ha un procés de stable diffusion, de certa manera, o sigui, hi ha un GAN en acció. Finalment, aquesta difusió acaba convertint-se en una càmera incrustada en el cap del míssil i aquí és com el colom ha aconseguit entrenar-se per clicar sobre el míssil i això estaria controlant la seva trajectòria. O sigui que les imatges aquelles operatives de Faroqui, doncs aquí un dels primers conceptes del colom de la pau, convertit en kamikaze i convertit en dron. M'agrada recuperar això perquè, pel que us deia abans, perquè les metàfores tenen un pes determinat i per ajudar-nos a pensar sobre, i com que de vegades, jo trobo que repeteix moltes vegades aquesta idea de la intel·ligència artificial com a caixa negra, crec que és important tenir en compte que potser la intel·ligència artificial a vegades pot ser una caixa negra i pot tenir aquest efecte màgic, aquest efecte il·lusionista, pot funcionar com un cub blanc i pot buscar com aquesta idea de la democratització, però si ens despistem pot funcionar també ràpidament com una caixa de Skinner. I aleshores mantenir-nos addictes a aquesta compulsió incerta, la superstició del colom, que fa que li demanem més i més i més i més sense que en realitat tinguem cap control sobre el que està passant i en realitat amb totes aquestes dades que estem gestionant allà és molt possible que estiguem com enviant míssils simbòlics o reals. També a l'hora de pensar des de la perspectiva de les arts escèniques, i en l'art en general, jo crec que també si pensem en la caixa de Skinner com un lloc en el qual podem acabar caient en dissenys d'instal·lacions interactives. Quantes instal·lacions interactives funcionen justament, la superstició del colom jo la veig moltes vegades en els museus quan la gent de cop i volta li diuen que una peça és interactiva i no sap ben bé per què i aleshores la gent comença a fer coses així, com aquest efecte en el qual ja no estàs demanant sucre, estàs demanant com comprensió, estàs buscant el significat, però a la vegada també estem, en certa manera, com a passant dins d'aquesta idea de Skinner per què estem posant a vegades la gent en aquesta situació. Són com a preguntes que crec que la història d'aquests artefactes culturals, com a mínim a mi, em susciten. Ja està. Gràcies.
Bueno, muchas gracias. Dejen de hacer scroll ahora mismo. Y bueno, continuamos con Pedro. ¿Sí? ¿Sí, no? ¿Sí? Sí, sí.
Vale, hola a todos, mi nombre es Pedro González y soy un compositor y violinista viviendo en Barcelona desde hace unos años. Voy a presentaros este proyecto, se llama Tangències, diseñando métodos interdisciplinares y herramientas tecnológicas para la composición y la interpretación en la música de arte occidental contemporánea, o sea, música clásica contemporánea. Antes de empezar con la presentación, os voy a poner un vídeo de aproximadamente 3 minutos, que son fragmentos de muchas piezas diferentes, que están de alguna manera relacionadas con este proyecto, con una especie de, de presentación, portfolio artístico, para que veáis un poco en qué espacio me muevo.
Nuestros cuerpos se hacen más grandes.
Blue object that controls the flute. You can see how it works. I get the controller. Vale, pues esta serie de piezas todas se inscriben dentro de un proyecto que se llamó Tangències, que fue un proyecto de colaboración que realmente se divide en 2 partes. Una que fue una serie de experimentos de corte más empírico que se realizaron en Hamburgo, en la UKE de Hamburgo. Y a partir de la serie de experimentos se crearon una serie de piezas también, en las que algunas de las estrategias, tanto metodológicas del experimento, en la manera de la recogida de datos, como también el contenido de los resultados se transformó en un proceso de creación colectiva con salida en varias piezas que después os enseñaré. Entonces, las preguntas de investigación principales os las voy a leer. ¿Cómo se podrían adaptar técnicas y métodos derivados de la investigación en ciencia cognitiva corporizada, for cognition, con el fin de aplicarlos a la creación de nuevas obras interdisciplinares que involucren tecnología digital en el contexto de la música de arte occidental? Después otra pregunta también practice-based sería ¿qué ocurre con mi técnica compositiva y performativa al incorporar maneras de trabajar inspiradas en otras disciplinas escénicas? En este caso concreto fue con la danza o el teatro y especialmente mediante el uso de feedback sensorimotor e interacción en tiempo real, que tiene mucho que ver con el for cognition, ¿no? Y por último, cómo puedo desarrollar herramientas tanto de software como de hardware que sirvan como dispositivos tecnológicos fundamentales como de base para apoyar colaboraciones interdisciplinares entre este set de bailarines, actores y músicos. Entonces, el tipo de métodos que utilizamos para la investigación se divide en dos partes. Por un lado están métodos de corte más empírico, que tienen que ver con el principio de la investigación, del for cognition, que por un lado hubo un diseño experimental de multivariable, que os voy a explicar ahora, y digamos que el análisis de datos de ese experimento, usamos modelado de efectos mixtos y análisis de varianza. Y después, por otro lado, hay una serie de métodos más practice-led, que están basados en la creación, como la creación en sí, también un proceso autoetnográfico de la creación de las colaboraciones, una serie de focus groups y también el diseño de sistemas interactivos, que yo lo considero parte del proceso practice-led porque realmente fue una iteración, el diseño de estos sistemas, que tuvo mucho que ver con los resultados de la práctica en sí. Entonces lo metería dentro del practice-led. Voy a empezar con el primer experimento, ¿vale? El experimento del que surgió todo este proceso se llama The Sonified Mirror Game Experiment. En este experimento hay dos personas que interactúan a través de un iPad y controlan una línea, realmente es como una especie de avatar de ellos en una dimensión. Lo pueden mover a la derecha o a la izquierda. Entonces tienen en el iPad una representación de su posición y de la posición de la persona con la que interactúan, y además cada uno de ellos lleva unos cascos y recibe sonido que les da información sobre cómo se están moviendo en relación al otro. Entonces, en este experimento lo que se les pide son una serie de trials y se les pide que interaccionen de maneras interesantes, como si fuera un ejercicio de contact improvisation, en realidad, pero muy simplificado. Os enseño un poco el primer diseño sonoro, es muy sencillito. Hay diferentes capas de diseño sonoro. Este es... no sé si no se oye muy bien. Ahora. Vale, veis que simplemente es una difusión en estéreo. Cuando se tiene que mover hacia la derecha para corregir su posición, el sonido les llega por la izquierda, y cuando se tiene que mover a la izquierda, el sonido les llega por la derecha. Y en los momentos en los que se mueven juntos, el diseño sonoro cambia y lo que reciben es una serie de acordes con diferentes sets instrumentales que les da como una especie de representación de las maneras en las que interactúan. Os pongo en un cachito de este diseño sonoro que existe al margen del feedback de reaccionar y ir cerca del otro, ¿no? Digamos que este sería cuando van juntos, ¿qué tipo de sonido escuchan? Son una serie de 4 acordes y diferentes interpolaciones entre ellos que solamente ocurren cuando van juntos las dos personas interactuando. Vale, entonces el experimento se dividió en varias partes que tenían que ver con los roles de cada uno de los participantes. Había un rol, una manera de interactuar en la que uno lideraba y el otro seguía. Después el caso contrario, el que antes lideraba ahora sigue y al revés. Y después teníamos el caso de joint improvisation, en la que no hay un líder claro, sino que es un proceso co-creativo entre los dos. Entonces pasaban por una serie de trials, como de pequeñas piezas de 3 minutos cada una, y recibían diferentes tipos de feedback modal. Entonces había una condición que era solo visual, solo veían el avatar, otra condición que era solo audio, que escuchaban la sonificación que os acabo de explicar, y otra condición que es audiovisual, en la que recibían tanto el audio como la imagen. Después de cada una de estos sets, de este pequeño experimento, se les hacía unas preguntas que tenían que ver con su sensación en el juego en sí, en general, en la interacción que habían tenido, y después específico de su relación con el compañero con el que lo estaban haciendo. Y además tenían la posibilidad de especificar si había habido algún momento especial y también situar como una especie de mapa de emociones corporal de dónde se sentían en cada una de las trials que habían estado en relación a su compañero, ¿no? Entonces, aquí podéis ver una primera tirada de algunos de los resultados en los que es interesante porque, por ejemplo, en la condición audiovisual se daba muchas veces que, bueno, nosotros esperábamos que el audiovisual iba a ser el más completo, ¿no? el que más rapidez iba a haber y no iban a tener problemas con seguirse, pero en realidad el audiovisual es el que la interacción era más lenta, tenía como mucho más variedad de patrones de interacción, en comparación con el visual, por ejemplo, en el que iba muy rápido, se seguía muy rápido, pero no había una especie de estructura clara que después se pudiera analizar temporalmente. Hicimos diferentes análisis y también a partir del contenido temático de las entrevistas. Entonces, este fue como la base del experimento, y a partir de aquí empezó un proceso de investigación a través de la práctica en la que recontextualizamos las herramientas de este SOCSMC, de este primer proyecto, en obras de nueva creación. Entonces, ahora os voy a hablar de 3 obras diferentes que utilizan tanto alguna de las tecnologías como ideas del Shadowing Paradigm, del Mirror Game, en el contexto de una obra compuesta. La primera obra se llama Híbrides, es para bailarina y violinista, y lo que pasa es que el violinista tiene un micro en el violín y la bailarina lleva un sensor de movimiento en el brazo. Entonces, dependiendo de los movimientos que hace la bailarina, transforma el sonido del violín a tiempo real. La idea es encontrar un espacio interdisciplinar en el que no puedas decir quién baila y quién toca, porque los dos están moviéndose y los dos están produciendo sonido. Entonces, es como mezclar las dos disciplinas y crear un espacio intermedio, híbrido entre las dos. Vale, la estructura de Híbrides pasó por un proceso también iterativo de creación. Al principio era simplemente una improvisación con diferentes secciones y poco a poco empezamos a desarrollar un sistema de notación. Entonces, el sistema de notación de este tipo de piezas es muy parecido, bueno, este no es en concreto de esta pieza, pero siempre utilizo más o menos el mismo tipo de notación. Se definen las posiciones en el escenario y después se divide el cuerpo en varios ejes diferentes y se definen ciertos gestos que después se organizan temporalmente, como si fuera una partitura. Entonces, cada una de las partes del cuerpo tiene un gesto asignado y el gesto se efectúa en un momento específico. La siguiente pieza de la que os voy a hablar se llama Fluid Engine, es para cuarteto de saxofones, también con sensores que controlan la electrónica en vivo y con coreografía. Y la idea también era aplicar el mismo tipo de... O sea, en el proceso de creación de la obra seguimos patrones que tienen mucho que ver en los ejercicios que hice con el ensemble, con el proceso del SOCSMC, del Mirror Game. Y ahora podéis encontrar algunas similitudes. Vale, en el caso de la notación para Fluid consiste en diferentes sistemas mezclados. Por un lado está una notación que tiene que ver con el movimiento y por otro lado la notación del sonido para cada uno de los instrumentistas. Es un poco parecido a Híbrides, también hay diferentes escenas con las posiciones de cada uno de los intérpretes en el escenario. Y la notación que seguimos es también notación relativamente tradicional, en la que tienes pues, los compases y cada una de las líneas especifica el movimiento con los diferentes gestos que tienen que hacer y la otra línea especifica lo que tienen que tocar cada uno de los miembros del cuarteto. Y la última pieza de la que os voy a hablar se llama Courant, que es una pieza creada para chelista que baila con su cello. La Courant es uno de los movimientos típicos de las suites, en concreto es dentro del repertorio de cello solo de los conservatorios, es uno de los, bueno, ¿cómo decirlo? Como una de los musts, ¿no? De cuando estás estudiando. Entonces la idea era, como la Courant viene de una danza, la suite originalmente era una danza, cómo repensar la idea de danza, que ahora simplemente es un acto instrumental, tocar con el instrumento la partitura y ya está, cómo repensar la relación con el instrumento a través del baile, del movimiento. Entonces, en la performance, la chelista se graba tocando y después tiene un sensor en el cello y dependiendo de los movimientos que hace con el cello, los sonidos pregrabados de la Courant se transforman dependiendo de los movimientos que hace la chelista. Os pongo un fragmento también. Vale, la notación de Courant es bastante parecida también a las dos anteriores. Hay una serie de movimientos preconstruidos y preensayados y se organizan en un timeline de partitura, pues lo que estáis viendo aquí, también con diferentes escenas y funciona de una manera bastante similar tanto a Híbrides como a Fluid Engine. Y por último decir que el Art Lab o el proceso este en el que, o sea, partiendo de las ideas y del experimento de Soques MCs, ser capaz o pasar por el proceso con una serie de intérpretes de elaborar o construir unas ideas unos en relación a otros. Probablemente, ¿no? La labor de los compositores muchas veces son ajenas a los intérpretes. Un compositor trabaja en su cuenta, en casa, y la relación entre la obra, la escritura y el intérprete muchas veces es bastante ajena. Y en este caso siempre fue un proceso en el que la investigación, la idea del trabajo colaborativo y la estructura del Soques MCs nos sirvió también para reentender cómo componer conjuntamente. Y bueno, esas eran las tres piezas que os quería comentar. Y gracias.
Súper, muchas gracias. Recuerden que después hay el momento de preguntas y respuestas, así que apúntenlas. And we continue with Yolanda. And yes, don't forget to take the notes for your questions at the end of the sessions. And thank you.
Hi, everyone. I hope you have a little space in your brain. I think we're a bit saturated with information and really interesting stuff. I don't know if you see. Do you hear? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, it's warm also, no? Yeah, thanks Axolot Collective and all the team for organizing all this. I'm going to talk a little bit about chemical communication, which is my main interest nowadays in my artistic practice. Chemical communication is there since the very beginning of life, like bacteria and prokaryote and all these things. They were communicating just and moving, finding nutrients and stuff just because of the chemical signals. So now we also know many other examples, like pollination. I'm not going to use images, so I invite you to use your imagination. We of course know how the pollination works, or how the mosquitoes bite us in the summer, and also like how our dogs have conversations with each other, you know. And they can also smell our body, you know, like our emotional state, because we have our body odor is unique, of course, and it changes along the history. It's not the same, the smell of a baby or the smell of an old people. Also, it changes a lot with, as I said, the emotional state is not the same. The smell of your sweat when you are doing sports, or when you are, I don't know, after partying or having hangover, or when you are stressed, you know, like we also emit chemical signals, of course, and then if now I am very stressed, then I am emitting signals so that you are alert, no? The trees also, they do this, like they emit volatile organic components to alert other people from the community that there's some danger going on. But there were some white men, thieves, healthy and wealthy, that they thought that the smell was dirty and vulgar and it was feminine, you know, and they neglected it. From the history of philosophy, like for Plato, it was like just connecting us to reality, you know, it was not this abstract, fabulous world. Or for Kant, it was not sublime. Or for Freud, it was like connecting us to our animal side, you know, and oof. But okay, we have a body, and that's luckily mostly gone. So how does this work? We have, I mean, you know, these bacteria, they were in the water, and then the history of evolution of the species, we went out of the water, and then there was the reptilian brain. So that's where the smell is located. And we have more than 400 receptors. Like, you have to think that with vision, we have 3 kind of receptors, like one for red, one for green, and one for blue. So like for smell, we have 400. So you can multiply, and it's a huge amount of molecules that we can perceive. And then like we have the limbic system, which is a group of structures in the brain that they regulate emotions, you know. And then like maybe you heard like the hippocampus and the hypothalamus and the thalamus and stuff like that. So there's the thalamus, and the input from the outside, it arrives to the thalamus, and then it is said like, okay, this is a visual stimuli. So it goes to the visual cortex. Or this is an auditory stimulus, and it goes to the auditory cortex. But the smell, it bypasses the thalamus, and it goes straight to the amygdala, which is where our memory is created in relation to emotions. So it's basically, it's not a rational sense. It's just like a really instinctive and really direct and really subjective. Like, I hope like you are maybe imagining something which is like, okay, we have a prompt, but you create a different image, so it's the same with smell. Okay, so let me read. We're gonna jump now to the 20th century, to the 50s in the cinemas. They developed these technologies that it was called smell o vision, and then they would diffuse smells. So imagine like a Western movie, and then you would feel the smell of the gunpowder there, you know. So they were, of course, synthetic smells, and they were there. So they have been developing these technologies and up until now, which basically is a fan with the little pots, and then you have these smells diffused. And yeah, until now that for virtual reality is really something that it can immerse much more the viewer in a kind of, yeah, more, I don't know if, whatever, yeah, more immersive experience like that. Also, with the internet, they wanted to send the digital smell messages, and then it's basically developed like small devices like peripherals that you can plug in your computer or in your mobile phone, and then you can send like a, hey honey, I'm having coffee, and then you press a button, and in the other side of the world, there's the coffee coming out, you know. But, well, the first email, it was in 2014, and it was basically just sending kava and yeah, I don't know, coffee, stuff like that. So you need the other person, of course, to have this technology, and it's, well, so this would be the analogy as if you would see an animation movie, you know, it's like like synthetic smells that you see, what you smell. So the other way around, if you want to grab if you want to make a picture, if you want to grab the smells that are there are different machines, like there's gas chromatography and mass spectrometry. So you put your smell sample there, and then you get a graph with all the molecules that they are there. And then, of course, we have sensors. I also use them in my work. And so they're the shape of a sensor, let's say. But you have one for each element. So there's maybe between 50 to 100 gases that you can sense, like CO2 or alcohol, or methane, propane, ammonia, these kind of gases. And it's basically you have one for each element, and then you get one number. So it's the same as if you make a picture and you have a sensor for the red, a sensor for the blue, and a sensor for the green, and then it's like you have a 1.5 red, 2.5 blue, and that's your picture, you know? So it's like this is nowadays the state of the art that normal people can get. But they are, yeah, I mean, like, they are used for safety most of the times, for gas leaking and stuff like this, but they are also implementing them in robots, like to localize smells and to help other people. And of course, we have Google, the Google Cloud, that they are training AI to recognize molecules, because there are billions of molecules in the air, and we only can like sense with the sensor like 50 to 100 gases, you know, so it's like something, yeah, quite, it's not as developed as with other sensory modalities technologies. It's quite far away. So now it's like, as Joan was saying, or Marc also, about the use of technology. If the only ones that they are using this technology is like these kind of people that we know, then how are we gonna do it? I mean, like, are we going to go to the global south to explode people and then build the devices in China and then pollute somewhere else and bring them here, you know? So also we have to take in account that, as we said, like smell is really emotional sense. So it's really risky that they can use it basically to manipulate our vulnerable sites, and we can end up with Trump or Millet or Abascal or all these guys. So basically the idea is like, maybe we, like the creative sector, we can be like I don't know if pioneer, I mean, like they are already there. We cannot pioneer because they need it. I mean, they have the money and they have the tools, but we can maybe hack them, or, you know, like make another use of them. So that would be the I don't know, the proposal, no? Yes, I'm gonna mention some olfactory artists that I admire, or they have a critical view with the system. And then I'm not gonna show beautiful works, but there's also many other artists that maybe it's not their main practice, the olfactory works, but they also use them in some works, like Sasha Spakar or Ortega Brain or Paul Vanus, they also have great works that use smell. So for me, the most, how to say, like the best contribution or the thing that the thing I like the most, it can be, the best contribution of chemical communication for me. I mean, the thing that is the most important for me is like that it can be a tool to communicate with other species, you know, like it's a language that we all share, you know, like with animals and with plants and stuff like this. So it's something that is there with organic life. So technology can be a fantastic help to translate, because we maybe don't understand each other's way of communicating, but the stuff is there. And maybe we can, you know, like all the time with this overcoming anthropocentrism and, you know, so we can finally open up to other species. And last but not least, it can trigger imagination, because memory and emotion, and imagination, they go hand by hand. It's necessary for one, like the one with the other. So then, smell is really, it's really triggering it. And then, I think we are gonna just need it, because future is bringing really a lot of challenges. And then the best tool we have as humans, for my view, is the imagination. And I think that's I don't know. That's the beautiful end. I hope it's not. No, we know the dystopia of the AI and stuff. So I don't want to be utopic also, but I think there's a space of possibility. It's not developed yet, but then it is possible, you know, to be there. So yeah, that was it.
Hello, Marc. Do you listen? Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, hello.
Okay.
Sorry, I can't be there.
No, don't worry. Okay, so we continue with the last presentation. And then we were telling, when your presentation ends, then we're gonna make a question and answers session. Okay, so I'll let you start, and thank you very much.
Cool. Can you just let me know if you can see this?
Yes, now it's loaded. Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, cool, nice. So I'll try to be quite short, 15 or so minutes. But just to briefly introduce me, I'm Marc. I'm an artist researcher and lecturer at St. Martin's. And generally speaking, my work is trying to look at how do external things mediated through technology influence one's sense of self. So super in line with the kind of themes of this talk about embodiment and data and who we are and how these things collide. But really I see as kind of in the center of this pyramid, and that's where kind of the individual can start to exist kind of within very fixed parameters of society and the construction of society. So yeah, kind of see my work kind of within that lens. So to very briefly talk about 3 projects and then jump into the project I'm really here to talk about. Seeing Eye was a project where I wore a VR headset for 24 hours a day for 7 days, only seeing and hearing what one person was seeing and hearing for that time. An asylum seeker from Gateshead, and we tested it with lots of different people. We worked with neuroscientists, behavioral therapists, psychologists to really try to understand how can you nurture someone to ultimately think in a different way? Can you change their rationale through only their senses, through a sensory deprivation isolation experiments. A different project that kind of went with that followed from that, was then focusing more on data privacy. And these trilogy of projects were specifically fighting laws in the UK that were being pushed through by Theresa May when she was Home Secretary, and then Prime Minister when she became Prime Minister. This one was Data Shadow, which was a public installation which one person entered one at a time into the shipping container. And the first half of it was a dark room with a little light and a woman who would give you a contract to sign. The only thing she would say at you was essentially, please sign this contract. Do you agree to the terms and conditions? A physical manifestation of terms and conditions. Of course, everyone signs the contract without ever reading it. After 36 seconds of the door closing, whether you sign the contract or not, the door in the middle opens, and then we're tracking you. So then if you're waving or doing a handstand, that's then being projected onto either side of the container. But inside of one of you, the one on the left-hand side, is your 1,000 most recent, the last 1,000, the 1,000 characters of your most recent text messages or WhatsApp messages. And on the other side of the container was 64 images from your camera roll, so photos you've taken. It's important to stress that you hadn't touched your mobile phone when you were inside the container. This was just happening as you were walking through it. The second part of that was then a talk that I gave. Anonymity is our only right, and that is why it must be destroyed. And in that talk, I then gave away all of the passwords to all of my online accounts. So Facebook, Twitter, Apple ID, online banking, everything in between. With the idea being that if I delete my accounts or deactivate them, to be more accurately, Facebook and co still have all of that data. So if other people start using my accounts, you start writing new but incorrect data to the virtual Marc Farid. A little bit kind of like scribbling over a note before throwing it away makes it harder to read. That was the logic. So to this day, Twitter handle @MarcFarid is still not me. And they are using it and they occasionally DM me. But really the idea was, cool, there's now messing up data, but how is it, at the time, a 24-year-old trying to live without a phone or computer for 6 months in London? If you don't agree to the terms and conditions, we're told that we don't have to tick the box. Cool, I didn't tick the box, and the reality was my social, cultural, and financial life absolutely plummeted within days. And in a very simplistic way, I became very addicted to drugs. You could say one drug replaced another in a very simple way. Yeah, give a TED talk about these projects if you're interested, watch them. The third project related to privacy-related stuff is a project called Poison Sandscape. So after not having had a phone or computer for 6 months, I then got a new phone, I got a new computer, and then I made new accounts. But then I broadcast all of them in real time online. So poison-sandscape.com is a newsfeed where you can see each day's data this month of September. You can see me flirting with a girl called Becca at the time. You can listen to my phone calls. You can see where I live. It was web browsing, phone calls, text messages, WhatsApp, 13 different things in total, all in real time. There's the obvious side of this, which was fighting against state privacy rules, which were coming into the UK, which the government have access to all of this data, plus some. So if you spend 10 or 15 minutes going on this website, you can so get a sense of my humor, my temperament, my rationale, who I am as a person, how wealthy I am, my routine, super easy to rob, super easy to do lots of things to. That's within 10 minutes of looking at my digital footprint. But then the other side of it was, how does it start to affect me when I know that everything is being broadcast? When my virtual self has a platform to exist upon, where my physical self can judge it in the same way that others judge it, how does then that start to affect me? When every action and behavior is potentially acknowledged by an infinite amount of people, what does that do to my ego? In the exact same opposite way of when I gave away all of my passwords, where I didn't have any acknowledgement whatsoever. What's the difference between these two? Yeah, as I say, watch the TED Talk if you want to know what the outcome of that was. But then really why I'm here in many ways is to present Invisible Voice. So Invisible Voice was a reaction to a lot of this work, where a lot of the work was nice pat on the back, Mark, nice work, you're doing great, glass of champagne to my ego, but no one changing anyone's behavior. So Invisible Voice is fundamentally trying to change people's behavior. So I should first of all say a very big thank you to Joanne, who's been wonderful during the residency that I've been doing with the UAC, and obviously thank you to the UAC and Hacktate and all the others. But yeah, so Invisible Voice fundamentally exists in 4 different forms. A desktop browser extension, a mobile phone browser extension, a mobile phone app, and an interactive artwork. And ultimately what it's doing is it's a window into companies, revealing lots of different information broadly under the headlines of environmental impacts, human rights, workers' rights, corporate accountability, lobbying, and financial conduct. So what it really is, it's a stock browser extension. You go on one of the 1.4 million companies that we have information on, and then it reveals loads of different information. As I say, so we're pulling information from 38 different open access data sets, just transition, social sustainability, ESG, gender balance, human rights, political leaning, EU and US lobbying, public funding that companies has received, loads. So yeah, if you were to go on Nike, for example, as I've done, you see their ethical rating. And under ethical rating, you'd see their labor rating. That's about 5. That includes the factories that they get work from, or their animal rating, or their environmental rating, or their price. Yeah, you go to ESG, and then see the ESG score. We've also included industry average. You can get a sense of actually how am I doing in comparison to other companies, or similar websites, or alternative websites. That's basically alternative companies, but we can't say alternative for legal reasons. Or EU lobbying, right? So they've lobbied 700,000 euros this year in the European Commission. Or a network graph. Network graph shows you that company, but links to other companies. So Nike directly owns Converse. It also directly owns Umbro. But it shows you people. So Tim Cook's there. So then you click on Tim Cook, and you see Tim Cook's board member of Nike. But Tim Cook is also the CEO and board member of Apple. So now suddenly the network graph then opens up, but you can now then suddenly see a direct link between Nike, their board member, and Apple, who is the same board member, which is quite a crazy connection to be having. But yeah, so then you click on Apple here, or you can go to the Apple website, and then you then see all of the information about Apple. Apple's massive, so it's showing you all the connections on the network graph, but this also then shows you the information. So Apple News has a centre-left bias. Their EU lobbying this year is 6.5 million euros. Their US lobbying is 2.1 million euros. ESG score, human rights benchmark, social transformation, digital inclusion, their employee rating, their Trustpilot, which is customer reviews, their online tracking, their terms of services, which is the D. Or say you go to Facebook. And then Facebook, then obviously we've got information on. I can talk to you for ages about these different ones, but I'll quickly go through this and then move on. But the lobbying they've done, for example, is 9 million euros this year in the European Commission. But they've also met with the EU Commission 227 times. That is pretty much once every day this year. Absolutely insane. Yeah, I will just slightly go forward. So those different features you can see within this. But one of the little things I'll show you and then move on is you're able to block companies from your browser, but it doesn't just block Facebook. It blocks all the other companies that they directly own. So Facebook, for example, or Instagram, or Oculus, or WhatsApp, or so on and so forth. Then it also exists as a mobile phone plugin, as I was saying. Pretty much the same as the desktop browser. It's this little bubble that appears and disappears when you want it to, and then it shows you similar information. For Fox, there'll be more political stuff. So they use questionable news sources is one of the ratings we've got, because it's a right bias based on editorial positions that align with the right and questionable due to the promotion of propaganda, conspiracy theories, and pseudoscience. But we also pull that it's right-wing, or we also pull that it's conservative. It's worth noting we use no cookies. Data privacy is fundamentally built into this. You don't even need an email account for the user accounts. It works on all browsers, and it works on Android and Apple. Then there's the mobile phone app, which is in its very early infrastructural stages right now. Very similar to the plugin, except you are able to scan products. So this is the Starbucks that I bought earlier. You scan it, it then looks at it, recognizes the logo, and then brings up the information on Starbucks. So you can see their poor human rights score, or their poor food and agricultural sustainability score, or their poor nature score. But it also allows you to scan the barcode of individual products. So you can see where that individual product was sourced, the materials, the labor, the packaging, and the transportation for that product. We've got 13 million products in our database, so that is both massive and absolutely tiny, if you think about the amount of products that are in the world. And we've got 1.4 million companies on our database, both massive and tiny, once again, for the same reason. And then, yeah, finally, and then I'll wrap up, is the interactive artwork of the project, which was being shown at UAC until like a week or so ago. But it's been shown at the Pompidou Centre, International Symposium of Electronic Art, Ars Electronica, UIC, Portugal, amongst a few other places. What it is it's scanning you for when you walk past it. So as soon as you walk past it, it looks for brands or products, and then it searches the visible voice database for what is it ethically doing badly on. And then it searches news headlines related to those negative things, pulls up that headline, pulls up images related to it, and then cycles through them. And then as you approach the screen, that then disappears, and then it shows you the network graph and the invisible voice information, so kind of the ethical rate stuff. Yeah, I'll leave it there quickly. So, but yeah, a really big thank you to UIC and Joanne and Hackday, especially, and Anna and Tara and Pau, for doing the residency the last year that was funding it. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we have now the moment for the questions and answers. I don't know if anyone wants to ask. Any also comments are welcome. Sí. So please come. The presenters, if you want to come to the stage. Like, wow, we have a lot of information now. Like, wow.
Pregunta para Pedro. ¿Dónde puedo encontrar estos resultados que sacaron, los resultados cuantitativos que sacaron, sobre todo de la parte como de la interacción entre, cómo se sintieron emocionalmente con la interacción, en la interacción con el otro humano? ¿Cómo puedo encontrar? O sea, me encantaría leer esto, verlo en algún lugar.
Hay una parte que todavía no está publicada y otra que sí, que es parte del proyecto SOCES MCs. Entonces puedes buscar online, SOC-SMC, que fue un proyecto de colaboración entre varias instituciones, y hay un paper específico que habla sobre algunos de los resultados del Sonified Mirror Game. Pero lo final de todo todavía no lo hemos publicado, hay cosas por publicar.
Lo lento que es luego construir un artículo.
Bueno, yo también quería preguntarte algo sobre cómo llegaste, ¿no? Porque ahora hemos visto como diferentes ejemplos de tu práctica. ¿Y en qué momento o cómo llegaste a encontrar ese punto, ¿no? Como porque vas conectando varias cosas, ¿no? Desde utilizar, ¿no?, el gesto del cuerpo para mover, ¿no? Bueno, para activar un instrumento, pero además como sumarle la capa del movimiento, ¿no? Entonces, ¿en qué momento o cómo llegaste como a ese lugar de tu práctica?
Yo empecé yo soy violinista, entonces aparte de compositor empecé con el violín, entonces siempre la práctica de tocar, de moverme ha sido parte de lo que hacía, y en un momento concreto empecé a hacer improvisación como contact improvisation, y fue como un cambio radical en la manera de relacionarme con el instrumento también. Y creo que a partir de ahí también empecé a componer, y componer de una manera un poco diferente a cómo se suele componer, porque también mi background compositivo, ahora lo tengo, pero en el momento en el que empecé a componer no tenía base, digamos, como de compositor, y la he ido como accediendo a ella a través de los años. Entonces creo que mi propuesta, mi manera de entender la composición también viene mucho del instrumento y del movimiento. Y creo que eso sería como las principales capas. Después también lo de la interacción con la neurocientífica fue... De casualidad estaba estudiando en Hamburgo y había hecho una pieza con sensores, y se llama Annika Lubert, la chica con la que colaboro, y vino a ver una presentación y me dijo, vamos a hacer este proyecto en la uni de neurociencia, igual te gustaría formar parte, y a partir de ahí empezó el proceso de colaboración, y de ahí salieron todas estas piezas.
La meva pregunta és pel Marc. Com que els cibernètics i tota aquesta penya basaven molt el control, les idees de control i tot això en feedback loops, m'agradaria saber si aquesta metàfora també te l'has com revisat o mirat com s'extrapola a l'actualitat, i m'encantaria que ens ho expliquessis, si és que saps alguna cosa, si ho vols compartir o el que sigui.
M'encantaria que ens ho expliquessis tu.
No, jo no tinc ni idea de feedback loops. Però és com una altra metàfora, no? Que també és com que ve molt cap aquí i llavors el teu punt de vista seria molt guai també.
Doncs la veritat és que no m'hi he ficat, però està allà super pendent i és imminent, vull dir que en podrem parlar d'aquí poquet.
Vale, vindré a veure't de les properes xerrades.
My question is for the other Marc. So first, thank you for sharing your work. I think it was amazing. And I was wondering, and for doing it, the last thing is like a dream come true. We always dream about that, I think. So seeing it, for me, is great. But I was wondering, because I've been trying to think about similar things myself and how to encourage action into some of these topics that we're seeing. And for example, with climate change, what we've seen is like people get overwhelmed with all these facts and they tend to feel discouraged. And so I don't know if you ever think about, for example, complementing this with positive news on resistance or things that have been achieved, like Amazon strikes and worker rights. And I don't know, because sometimes like we tend to think that these problems will be too big. And I don't know if you have ever thought about like balancing it somehow to provide hope that there is something that we can do besides just boycotting by not buying, let's say, like by collective organization, or I don't know.
Yeah, so it's a good question. Our next step in terms of how we're building this is kind of more of a call to action, but trying to link people with interests they have, or goals or values or morals, with organizations, NGOs, charities, researchers, not-for-profits, who are working in the same physical, geographical area as you, for you then to be able to participate in whatever causes. And really we're trying to look at what are the different levels of participation. So, you know, most people actually want to do something, but not physically actually do anything. So how can we then utilize that? Is it giving people your data? Is it signing something? Is it turning up to something? Is it you physically doing something? Is it lobbying your MP? Is it donating? Is it all starting to pull resources together? That really for us, this is a very foundational step for then really trying to think about, Barcelona is excellent at it, I have to say. In the UK it doesn't even exist, but almost acting as a lobby group. How can kind of communities come together, essentially forming an association, but that was something that I only heard about in Barcelona. Yeah, it's trying to look at what are the political, legal and media infrastructures that people are kind of able to enter. But in a slightly more philosophical answer, the hope thing that lots of people keep on asking me to kind of leave talks on a hopeful note. And I often think that that diminishes the whole value, that we're living in quite a dark period of society where there's little hope. And in many ways, I think we should be more acknowledging of that little hope, rather than trying to kind of fluff it at the end and be like, maybe there is light, maybe there is something at the end of this, which then I think can leave people thinking the wrong thing when the world is falling apart. The wrong politicians are winning all over the world at the moment. That hope is quite a difficult thing, and I think maybe it's about being realistic with what's possible, and then by being realistic, we see the smaller steps that can be achievable rather than the huge unattainable things that just mean you don't do anything. I don't know if that answered it. But.
Hola, yo tengo una pregunta para Yolanda. ¿En qué idioma? Should I do it in English because your presentation was in English? Or bueno, lo voy a hacer en castellano, da igual. Me interesa mucho la temática, aunque ya conozco tu trabajo, obviamente, me interesa mucho la temática que presentas, ¿no? Sobre el tema de chemical, ¿no? De los olores, sobre todo. También porque es una cosa que yo hace poco he experimentado. Por un tema hormonal, ¿no? De dejar de tomar la pastilla anticonceptiva y darme cuenta que huelo a mis estudiantes muchísimo, ¿no? Y lo digo sin ningún tipo de vergüenza ni tema, porque precisamente me encanta la posición que has dicho de que siempre se ha visto como algo a ridiculizar o a estar avergonzado de, ¿no? Por toda esta imposición cultural, ¿no? Lo que pasa que hablas bastante, y tal vez yo me he perdido en algún momento, de la interconexión interespecie, pero me gustaría saber si lo has aplicado con tus trabajos, o sea, si has aplicado o has analizado, o seguramente si no lo has hecho, proyectas hacerlo, ¿no? Y de qué forma analizar la reacción que genera en otras especies que no son humanas, ¿no? ¿Por qué lo pregunto? Porque me parece que es una cosa, y por eso decía mi experiencia, ¿no? Que es tan personal y no te das cuenta hasta que te falta o de repente se te expande, ¿no? Y como es un tema del que no hablamos, pues pues no se comparte tanto, ¿no? Entonces, bueno, ¿cómo pretendes analizarlo? ¿Cómo proyectas hacerlo con entiendo, animales? Pues bueno, sé que lo has hecho con sistemas electrónicos, pero sería con animales.
Bueno, o sea, un apunte así en plan social, como que la sociedad gasta más dinero en quitarse su olor personal que en ponerse otro diferente. O sea, por mucho que queramos, siempre hay olores en la ropa, o sea, como en el jabón, en el champú, en todo, es como muy difícil no tener olores artificiales y es como lo mismo de querer tapar tu estado individual y homogeneizar, ¿no? Lo típico que se ha hecho con la sociedad de homogeneizarnos y ir así. Y luego, con la comunicación interespecie, es que, o sea, por ejemplo, el tema de que pongan árboles en la ciudad, resulta que emitan extra de polen o sea, aumentan. A ver, la polución les afecta tanto que tienen que emitir otras sustancias, como en plan grito de socorro, y entonces eso aumenta los niveles de polución. Entonces, por ejemplo, son cosas que no nos enteramos porque parece que es mejor tener muchos árboles plantados aquí, pero resulta que en Barcelona, pues en las líneas horizontales o en las verticales, pues es peor porque emiten más, o sea, la reacción que hace la sustancia que emiten en reacción a la polución aumenta la polución. Entonces, es mejor tener muchos parques, o sea, toda la vegetación afuera, toda junta. Entonces, pues mi último trabajo, que sí que es más bien también para como ejercitar la imaginación, que intenta ser como un teléfono para comunicarte con las plantas a nivel olfativo. Entonces, pues tú les puedes tirar unos olores que son solamente sustancias como de bioestimulantes, son todas sustancias de cuidados, entonces las plantas tú puedes, se supone que recibir el olor que están emitiendo ellas. Entonces, esto es como tener, claro, yo no tengo acceso a tecnología súper avanzada, pero o sea, como los siguientes pasos, que son unos sensores que tú puedes entrenar con inteligencia artificial, en plan de, vale, este olor es esto. Entonces, es como tener una super array de sensores entrenados con cada sustancia que vayan diciendo, y entonces hacerte como un mapa de qué significa cada sustancia que emiten, o sea, como hacerte tú un lenguaje. No sé si me estoy explicando, pero creo que sería más o menos eso, como hacerte un traductor. No. Estamos en ello.
Vale, eso es para Yolanda también, y un poco siguiendo la pregunta anterior. En esta investigación que has hecho o en tu experimentación, ¿hay algún tipo de olores que sean reconocidos de la misma forma por diferentes especies? Que puedan, no sé, a lo mejor funcionar como trigger en nuestra primera comunicación.
¿Especies de plantas o especies
O
humanos?
especies humanos, plantas o
es que
animales.
En los humanos, o sea, es algo totalmente subjetivo, porque se supone que la lavanda es algo muy, no sé, un olor maravilloso, ¿no? Para todo el mundo, lo que sea, y es relajante, pero es que hay personas que que han estado explotadas recogiendo lavanda, que este olor les produce una reacción pues, de rechazo absoluto porque han sido explotadas con eso. Entonces es como que cada olor está asociado a una emoción cuando tú la descodificas. Entonces es que es subjetivo. O sea, por eso también como que desde el racionalismo y así es como que, o sea, mejor se deja aparte porque es muy difícil, ¿sabes? Hay mucha molécula, muy subjetivo, y mejor aparte.
Qué guay, gracias.
Gracias, Sid. Bueno, yo tenía una pregunta para Joan y Paloma que conecta un poco con la frase que Marc decía, esto de que para que una tecnología exista tendríamos que haberla imaginado. Y es muy interesante ver cómo se dan estos diálogos y cómo se ubican, y pensando en que de hecho hay esta investigación que intenta tener esta mirada con perspectiva a nivel de catálogo, quería preguntar ¿qué vemos en este catálogo que nos puede informar de cómo se está dando este pensamiento, ¿no? De cuáles son las preguntas que estamos haciendo sobre la tecnología, y pensando que la tecnología digital es joven en tanto que, o al menos el uso de la electricidad para la tecnología digital, para no descartar todos los telares, es joven. ¿Qué vemos en este catálogo que puede de alguna manera informarnos sobre cómo se da este pensamiento? O si tiene una estructura, o si no, o no, bueno, no ho sé.
Wow. Bé, el catàleg l'estem estudiant. Sí que la premissa de la que partim és que l'art digital i els artistes és una mica gairebé contradictori amb el que has dit tu. Són els primers d'adoptar les tecnologies. No és contradictori. Potser podem acceptar la teva premissa, però en tot cas la nostra parteix de que quan apareix el wearable computing, doncs qui són els primers de posar-s'hi? Els artistes. I a partir d'aquí generen imaginaris i generen maneres de funcionar, i en el cas d'aquesta investigació sobre l'híbrid entre el que és real i el que és virtual, la idea és buscar com l'art ens proposa imaginaris que vagin una mica més, i ara quan parlava el Marc estava pensant fer així del titella, que ens doni una mica més de joc, unes altres coses, unes altres maneres d'imaginar-nos aquesta connexió que ara mateix tenim tan rara i fora d'escala que tenim aquí. Llavors, per exemple, això mateix, el fora d'escala, ja és interessant. I és trobar aquestes coses. Cada un dels projectes té la seva manera, i de moment el primer que ens està servint molt al catàleg és per problematitzar el concepte mateix del virtual. Per exemple, fer servir real, virtual o material, no material, i al final jo me'n vaig cap a la idea del virtual i el no virtual. Perquè al final, i potser és el que és tangible, el fet que puguem tocar les coses o no, o que les puguem olorar, que el que fa que una cosa l'haguem de classificar com a virtual o no, i llavors que hi ha moltes maneres de virtualitzar. Per això l'espectre dels projectes, com el del Roc Parés, que simplement és una gravació del mateix espai en un altre temps, una gravació real, en canvi altres treballen amb avatar, altres són més resistit molt, però hi hem posat un projecte de realitat augmentada, perquè al final sí que jugo amb això, i bé, és una mica trobar totes aquestes maneres de ballar i de trobar-nos amb el virtual d'una manera molt més àmplia a les pantalles de Zoom o del que sigui, que és el que ens diu ara els Googles i aquesta gent de no, el virtual és això. Allò tan espantós que plantejava fer el sort que va arribar a la intel·ligència artificial i se n'ha oblidat, però allò tan espantós que volia fer el Zuckerberg de que tots seríem a casa amb les ulleres en un lloc que era exactament com una oficina. Doncs fugir al màxim de lluny possible d'això.
És treballar l'experimentació, quines noves línies de treball s'han donat en aquestes obres. A veure cap a on van.
Pues creo que podemos dejarlo por aquí, si os parece bien. Yo solo quiero agradecerles muchísimo, estamos así súper inspiradas y emocionadísimas. Y bueno, muchísimas gracias por acompañar también. Y pues hacemos ahora una pequeña pausa de 10 minutos. Y luego continuamos con Diana, and then we continue with Diana, who's presenting a keynote in 10 minutes. Okay. Okay, so we are going to continue to the last activity for the presentations from today. And yes. So I'm very, 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 very happy to introduce to you to Diana. Diana Neranti. And I am going to say that we met this summer in a very nerdy camp called PIF Camp. And it was so nice to understand each other practices and how we both were interested in using the body, understanding the body, especially related with specific technologies, and how through the body we can think about technology and so on. So let me tell you a little bit about Diana. In her artistic practice and research, Diana explores feminist approaches to knowledge creation, the potential of poetic machines, and the continued validity of traditions in an era of artificial intelligence and digital colonization. As artistic director of Replica, she imagines the dance theater of the future, playful, subversive, underpinned by new technologies, a laboratory for human and non-human actors negotiating agency, generating new aesthetics and narratives. So maybe I let you continue your presentation. So thank you for being here. And
thank you so much, Sid. Thank you so much for inviting me. I think it was destiny that brought us together because I feel very at home in this community of artists. I felt inspired by all the talks before, and I only wish I knew more to speak Catalan so that I can understand all the content. So today I'm going to present my practice, which I conceive as a series of acts of poetic embodiment. I am a weird hybrid myself, I considered. I had a very weird life choice after pursuing a PhD in computer science and math to kind of totally change and start a degree in performing arts. And I find that this intersection, these fields, brought me to very interesting places. So I would like to talk about this journey together with you today. But before starting, I would like to also share with you the fact that when I talk, usually my heart beats very fast. And I feel in this heightened state of awareness where my consciousness monitors the body. And this is actually an invitation for you as well to think about your bodies, to come into your bodies, and think about the small data sets that your snippets of awareness are creating just now. I would invite you to imagine your body as your primary instrument for knowledge creation and as a primary instrument for navigating the world, a container of lived experience, a container of rhythms, cyclical rhythms or vibrations. The present moment. How would it be if your body would be a musical instrument? Can you see your body as energy? What and where does your individual body end and where the collective body begins? What are the limits of your body and of your awareness? Where do your senses kind of end and where does the world begin? Some of these questions I've been exploring in my work. And for me, I suggest performance techniques as counter strategies to a world of digitalization where we are sold these embodied illusions. So the digital culture in which we live today is very much rooted in a body-mind split. It's selling us fantasies of uploading our brain and our mind into the cloud, this kind of disembodied fantasies of escapism. And for me, performance practice was actually a way of saving myself from this world of digitalization. So maybe that's the reason why after the PhD in computer science, I decided to escape to the world of body. And this is me actually after studying also performance, I escaped in a place called Grotowski Institute in Poland, where there are these very embodied and very intense physical trainings that are called psychophysical acting, and it's pushing the body towards certain limits. So this journey in performing arts actually took me from many places. I'm originally from Romania, but I studied in Romania, Germany, Scotland, and then I went to Poland. I'm telling this because all these are kind of visible in my practice and are biasing my work in a certain way, together with my background in computer science and performing arts. So here I'm training in the Brzezinka forest, which was this forest base of the Grotowski Institute. So for those of you who are not familiar with the work of Grotowski, Grotowski was a Polish theater director, mostly active throughout the 70s and the 60s. and whose work revolutionized the world of theater. Grotowski's work and the work that is supported by the Grotowski Institute today are examples of psychophysical approaches to acting. The training works by making the actor more aware of the moments at which their body and mind act as one. So it's kind of very much emphasizing this body and mind unity, which is kind of going against the split that I was talking about, and I found that very inspiring. Voice and singing are very important elements of the practice. So after having this very intense experience, which was very influential for me, I went on this quest of overcoming dualities and asking myself, how can I do that through the embodied practice? So for me, the psychophysical training was an invitation of exploring the body-mind continuum. However, other dualities became equally interesting for me in exploring, and I felt that precisely this territory of in-betweenness was particularly fertile ground for new ideas, a potential place for transcendence. There were other dualities that I discovered, like, for example, conceptual versus material, natural versus technological or artificial, animal versus cultural, contemporary versus traditionally, art versus science, objective versus subjective. False binaries could go on. But what if we treated everything like in an embodied continuum? So on the model of the Polish theater, in 2017, I co-founded Replica as a laboratory for embodied but rigorous experimentation with technologies and new media. The technology seemed also as a perfect medium to bring material and immaterial aspects together in the same frame, a perfect medium for exploring those dualities. So Replica was at its essence also a laboratory for experimenting with or breaking those dualities in embodied and situated context according to feminist theories. In 2019, we got funded, actually. So we started on another quest, a project called The Shape of Things to Come. In this project, we bring a lot of questions surrounding the creation of AI and AI-based technologies in our laboratory. Some of the questions we explored were how theater techniques aimed at honing embodied intelligence and body-mind continuum could inform the construction of intelligent machines. We are seeking for answers in this legacy of the Grotowski Institute, and we organized intense theater trainings with renowned practitioners from the Institute. So we invited people from Matejka or Dieter Berkeley. Some of the questions that we were asking would be very generic. So those were kind of original research questions, like our start for exploration. Like, what knowledge does the body hold? How to become radically closer to each other? How can embodied intelligence influence the design of embodied artificial intelligence? And how to facilitate flow or presence, which was very encouraged in this training of Grotowski. But we came across other critical questions as well. We were asking, for example, how can we bring the algorithm into the room in a way that is not extractive or invasive? What is the flesh of an algorithm? A lot of the problems are coming from the fact that these algorithms stand for abstract, irrefutable truths sold to us as objective. If we were able to recreate the flesh of the algorithm through the process of reverse engineering, a reverse archaeology, if we see those algorithms as form of abstraction from material worlds, bearing the flesh of their socioeconomic and political contexts, abstracted from lived experience. So we try to explore those connections between the material and the conceptual, between this psychophysical training as a technology of the body and the algorithmic acts. And here is a trailer showcasing a bit some moments of this intensive training and kind of trying to provide a bit of context and feel of what's happening at the Grotowski Institute. We actually brought these people to Berlin. This is not in Berlin, actually this is outside Berlin in a place called Zauen, where the University of the Arts has a residency, small residency space. So we isolated there like for 2 weeks, and we conducted those very, very intensive trainings, trying to analyze how the training is transforming the body, how it's conditioning the body, but also how we can appropriate these techniques of the body and technology alike. How can we intersect technologies of the body with AI, machine learning-based technologies? And how can we take control over those tools ourselves. So you can see that a lot of emphasis is on physicality and on group dynamics. On immersive environments, we are spending a lot of time in nature, training in nature, and this is a very important part of the practice. On embodied listening to ourselves and to one another, on vocal training and on singing. There are a lot of psychological experiments as well. Sometimes we blindfolded ourselves for half a day. This is also part of the training. Within this framework, we also bring technology, which in our original context was an observer, but it becomes slowly an extra actor in our speculative and a speculative element in our fictional world. So we have all these kind of surveillance technologies, from Z cameras and wearable devices for data collection. Technology becomes part of our daily rituals and speculative scenarios. Some questions start to emerge from this practice, like how it is like to build animalistic technologies. And throughout this context, we are very aware of the fact that technology is not neutral. We are inside what we make, and it's inside of us. We are living in a world of connections, and it matters which one get made and which unmade. So the technology that we're using, they are actually like self-made technologies. We involve every member of the team, like in the making process, and what we want to prototype is actually bringing two communities together as well. We want to bring the community and the culture of making together with the community and culture of performative and people working with their bodies. And those are not easy to bring together communities because they are quite far away from each other. Who knows a bit about Grotowski and the poor theater? The poor theater is against technology. So it's kind of like trying to bring two elements, like two magnets who are rejecting each other, like trying to bring them in the same room. And there is a lot of conflict there and a lot of conflict for ideas, but I find that exactly this kind of like opposite views are kind of generative of new insights. So we try to also build everything according to feminist principles of embodied and situating knowledges, and we think this is a nice framework also for exploring feminism, like in a practical way. On ethics of care and psychophysical integration of body and mind, a process of continuous renegotiation where we can talk with each other about different values and about different systems of values, and we try to find a common path together, while also documenting the system and being self-reflexive on our practices. So we also like take a lot of notes, and there is a lot of field note and ethnographic research, accompanied, of course, by more quantitative data research. But even in the quantitative data research, we use these quantitative elements to speculate about. We are designing stories, speculative stories, in which imagine that all this kind of quantitative data would be found like in a future by people who would not understand what those heartbeats mean, who would kind of imagine that this is like somehow the distributed heartbeat of a collective body, who would sometimes keep together because they would experience the same things, and moments of synchronicity might arise. And those moments of synchronicity of flow are quite interesting to explore. So having this data also and the stories that this data might tell about the experience of the group as a poetic device was an interesting element. Act 3, singing with the body. One element that stood out from the Grotowski training was inspired by this idea of body as music, as rhythmic vibration, reinforced by practitioners such as Ilona Kravchik and Dita Berkeley from Grotowski Institute, who are good friends and who I had the opportunity to collaborate since 2019. And they were encouraging the performers to sing with the body and dance with the voice. There were these kind of transferable qualities that we were exploring. And we started the prototyping of an AI machine learning wearable device that sonified the movements of the body based on this kind of poetic idea. We wanted to give the body a voice, an additional voice, a mutation that we can play with. We wanted to transform literally the body in a musical instrument powered through its aliveness. And we created such a wearable device together with Mika Satomi. This device was used as a compositional tool for a dance theater piece which I choreographed called Dancing at the Edge of the World, which I envision as a post-dramatic dance theater, a physical poem, a ballad of bodies and machines. In the performance, the machine becomes a medium for interconnecting the moving bodies of the dancer in space, but also to create a language for the choreography, an interwoven sound texture for the collective body. Some of the original questions that we also asked at the beginning of building these musical instruments were, how can we create a synthetic voice for the body? Not fully fledged words, but rather syllables, vowels, consonants mapped on the movements of the dancers. How can we give a synthetic body a voice to the collective body and to create a puppeteered collective mouth that could speak a language that could be activated only through the choreography? Voice, sounds, in between, articulate and inarticulate. How can we give a synthetic voice to the body of the collective body? How can we create pockets of articulate silence? And we took also like as an inspiration an early piece of technology. This was the Voder, developed in 1939 by Bell Labs, one of the first voice synthesizers. And Voder worked as a musical instrument. It worked like a piano that was operated by a human operator and could produce
uses only two
voice or sounds similar
One of these represents the breath.
To the human voice.
The other, the vibration of the vocal cord. There are no phonograph records or anything of that sort. Only electrical circuits, such as are used in telephone practice. Let's see how you put expression into a sentence. Say, she saw me, with no expression. She saw me. Now say it in answer to these questions. Who saw you? She saw me. Whom did she see? She saw me. Did she see you or hear you? She saw me.
So we wanted to take this idea, this machine, this Voder, and put it on the body and map it to the movements of the dancer through, again, like a self-made wearable device that could be specific for this practice. And in collaboration with Mika Satomi and Johannes Hellberger and Lou O'Neill, we created this device, which is kind of schematized in the picture. It's endowed with band sensors that could be attached on 8 points of the body, and also like with a speaker that is attached on the front body of the performer, giving a real-time feedback to the movements. And we prototyped this device and the voice in the device through iterations. So we worked iteratively in the studio together with the performers and the musicians and the interaction designer. So here is Kate experimenting with a device and kind of listening to her body with different mappings. From one performer, we switched to two, creating a dialogue. The act of listening to each other is very important for this, and it's more like a call and response through the movement. And then we start like creating a polyphonic choir of movements. Where this interwoven choreography of actions and sounds and movements becomes more visible. And here is a snippet from the actual performance. I'll play this a bit. It shows the beginning of the performance, which was broadcasted online. This was happening during the pandemic, and we wanted actually to make it an immersive experience, but we didn't have the chance. So first, the performance starts with constructing the technology. We are showing how the performers are dressed, this ritual of kind of putting on the sensors on the body. And here is Mika putting the sensors on. It was like a very hard work. Every time when we had to do the rehearsal, we had to embody this process. And it's very difficult work to work together with technology and the body. They are totally different time frames. We wanted to show this.
Are these the sensors?
Also the performers stretching and warming up in the back.
This thing that I put in the beginning is the sensor.
And the beginning of every performance starts with this ritual again of calibrating the body and training the body. So it's a small data set that gets trained and retrained every time we perform. And this is part of the performance again. It was supposed to be visible how things are done, basically. This calibration and then the mapping of the movements, it's quite basic. We only mapped 5 movements to the 5 vowels or 5 vowels of the English language. It was a very prototypical stage that we have here. So here is supposed to be A. So in this performance, in performance spaces, you can set the conditions for beautiful moments to happen, but a lot of those performances are devised, so they come together through the ideas of everyone in the room. You can set the right conditions, but beautiful moments cannot be forced. We were a team set on an exploration, and sometimes we found beautiful things. Sometimes moments of magic would really happen. And this was one of the moments of magic, so I wanted to share it with you. after that moment, like the performers gave the feedback that they were in a state of flow, we were all watching. Usually our training routines and our practice went like this, like we gathered in the same space, we shared the space, and we would work independently on the performance. But sometimes things would come together very beautifully. The training of the body that we are engaging with works also a lot with repetition, which is also interesting for creating small data sets of embodied practice. So after this experimentation, where we found that this device works very nicely as a musical instrument from which the voice can dip in and out, we're kind of more interested in dancing more with this voice and kind of like go a bit deeper in this practice, but maybe in a smaller scale. So in this smaller scale, we are thinking also about reflecting more on the politics of making such devices, because there were a lot of decisions involved. And we were also considering this kind of embodied space of performative practice as being a very nice socio-technical system in miniature, in which we could reflect on and map our decisions and the way this artifact, but also the practice that this artifact enabled, came together. And here we focused on taking this device, but exploring it a bit differently. So instead of just randomly mapping postures of the body to vowels, we take another exercise for embodied training, embodied voice from Grotowski, and this is called intention. And in this exercise, this training system treats sound as a physical presence in space that the actor has to work with, pushing or pulling or caressing. So the voice becomes an entity. And there is a transfer of energy between the voice and the physicality of the performer. So we're thinking, okay, this is very interesting, like to transform, to model the system and see how it can pan out, and how can we train the device with exploring those actions, and how can we define those actions to be recognizable for a machine learning system? What does it mean to push something? You have to be very specific about what you need to push. Is it a big box, a small box? It is what muscles of the body do you get engaged to when you are performing those actions? How do you actually like establish a vocabulary that could translate to machine? Is there something like a general system that you can define, or like it's so particular that you cannot touch upon? So we're exploring with mapping those actions, and here is Kate actually like pushing against the wall, and instead of her voice responding when her body was engaged in a way that she considered optimal, is the machine who replies. So she's wearing the device, and the voice comes from her speaker. It's connected this time like to other parts of her body, like it's taking the muscles from the diaphragm, kind of trying to see the expanding and the compression of the rib cage, which gets activated through the act of push. And we analyze this process. So because we are this time like only a small team of people, we could reflect upon what we are doing. So it was myself that was involved, it was Mika Satomi, it was Kate Ryan, and we had Scott de la Junta, professor in dance and performance, who was actually like he's one of the founders of the Motion Bank. And Motion Bank is this platform for dance movement, which was founded in Frankfurt 20 years ago, I think. With Foresight Company, so has a long history of documenting dance and dance practices. And we took a very ethnographical approach also to our process. So here, like in the backstage of Motion Bank, where we collect our footage and our videos, we can also annotate based on the videos. We can annotate the practice with statements of experience. So basically, statements of what we felt in the moment. And these statements could be textual, or they can be also like audio commentaries. And here is Kate documenting her practice and actually talking about what she was experiencing when she was dancing with the machine. I wanted her to play. Yeah.
It's a very interesting question. I think I am guilty of, let's say, anthropomorphizing or accepting the technology much more than everyone else in the process, and have been since the beginning. I am not thinking it's all about the computer. The algorithm, certainly not the synthesizer. I'm thinking about, I mean, for me, the need, my initial relationship with the sound was much more to be controlled by it than to try and control it, which is something that Ilona noticed very early on in the process as well. And even when I did start to get some control in terms of having some knowledge of my body, which meant that I could a little bit predict what would come, I think that was still the basic relationship of that interaction.
So yeah, here is like we documented many videos like this, so it was quite an in-depth practice that also like we published afterwards. Act 5, we're more interesting to kind of looking into some patterns of movements and like looking at cyclical behaviors in the body and how you can capture that, or how you can build maybe small data sets based on the cyclical things that are happening in our bodies, because like we do a lot of repetitive movements every moment. Like we are breathing, which is like very repetitive movement. And breathing is actually very interesting for performance, because like it gives like a way like to emotion. It's a gate to emotion. It's a way to alter physicality. So here we are engaging like in this act of breathing and observation with the latent space, in which we are kind of trying to visualize how the latent space is shaped by adding more repetition or repetitive movements in real time. And we experiment with different types of repetition. So here is just the breathing. My breathing is captured. But we try to explore this idea of repeating something and engaging to see how our repeated movement is shaping or altering what the algorithm understands. By exploring this, we are kind of hoping to get an experiential approach to explainability, like to look a bit like in this kind of black box, and maybe to pose another approach than the mathematical one, maybe a phenomenological approach that engaging with the algorithm through an embodied perspective, through our senses, could bring us a new understanding of how this technology might work. And Act 6, ritual songs. So originally, like the Grotowski and Grotowski Institute, and is working a lot with ritual singing, and I was very inspired by that. They consider that ritual songs are performative artifacts that allow the practitioner to embark upon a journey towards the beginning of a song, which allows the discovery of the first singer within one's own body. And this is a connection not only through with other people, the collective body in the present time, but is also like the collective body through history. It's a connection through our ancestral roots. And this was very interesting for me as well, because like I heard at the Grotowski Institute some Romanian songs also being sang in a way that I've never heard before, and it was very viscerally there, and kind of like it was a gate for me also to connect with my own history. And based on that, and also wearing these artifacts, I was thinking, how can we reconsider rituals, and kind of how can we make a modern embodied ritual through technology. And this is a piece I designed for Tanz im August in Berlin in 2023. For a site that was actually presented outdoors. It was like connecting dance and ecology, and it was also a very embodied practice. And I devised a performance called She Brings the Rain, which is a poetic interpretation of an old ritual rainmaking song and dance, which is practiced, I think, throughout many kind of traditional cultures. This particular one is from the part of Romania I'm coming from, so it's from the seaside, from Dobrogea. But it's also like different variation of this, like it's in different parts, like throughout the Balkans, Perperuna, Paparuda, the Dola, those are all the names of the goddess of rain that is invoked through this ritual. And this is a bit of a recomposed soundtrack of the live performance. Yeah, so thank you. This is like an overview of my practice and the way I'm using technology. I hope it was inspiring. It was very inspiring to be here, and I'm looking forward to questions or discussions. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your presentation, and of course I have questions, but I would like to invite the audience to share questions. Yeah.
All right, thanks. I wanted to ask if you can elaborate just a tiny bit on something you mentioned really quickly, which was the post-traumatic dance theater.
Mm-hmm.
Did I have that right? So can you explain what that was?
Post-dramatic dance theater. So yeah, it was post-dramatic is like it has a non-narrative, non-linear narrative frame. Which is more like a collection of sequences in contemporary dance or contemporary performance making language or terminology. Like it's something that it doesn't have like a linear narrative, like the way you would build a performance. So post-dramatic is non-linear, basically.
Okay, I misunderstood you, and I thought you had said post-traumatic, like PTSD.
No. Well, I hope it was not very traumatic, like for anyone. So like.
Okay. Well, we can talk about it later, but.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, that was really great. Thank you. So I'm coming at this from a perspective that is more ethnographic and anthropological. So when you showed the slide with the notebooks on, my ears immediately pricked up. I guess like there's an obvious kind of binary which is between the kind of qualitative and the quantitative. But the bit that I'm more interested in is between the individual and the group in terms of that note-taking and research and how that then feeds into the practice. And I'm starting to kind of grapple with, like, anthropological work is so much about the individual, and I can kind of get the body as a sensing instrument that is producing written outputs that are performative in a particular kind of way. But like in the last year or so, I've done some more group research activities where the outputs are still written, but you're having to kind of coordinate and patch together different people's perceptions. And also that then, as it shifts into that dance annotation online platform, I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how that kind of qualitative, observational, reflective work, like it's kind of iterative, right? It kind of feeds into the process and then produces more. I wonder if you could talk about that in the context of the kind of work that you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question, and I think it's a very complicated to answer, especially because like I don't think I knew very well what I was doing at the beginning. Like we didn't know very well. Like it was like more a pilot project in which we wanted to bring all those methodologies together and actually like make our own framework for kind of reflective thinking and remaking and appropriating the master's tools and so on. So like in the shape of things to come, like we thought about like, okay, covering all aspects somehow. Like we thought, okay, qualitative, quantitative, individual, see that those are binaries. We had an ethnographer, part of the core team, like on board, who was taking his own personal notes and conducting interviews. Then we had like pre-typed, templated notebooks for all the performers, so that they could, at moments in the day, like take time and kind of write their experiences, basically, because we thought it's important to have them fresh, and this is also like a part of performance making. Usually you have rounds of discussion and sharing, and because it's very important that experience to be fresh. And also, like, we had a long process of research when we put the workshops together. Like, we had a pre-planning phase where we were thinking, okay, what do we want to achieve now? What is the framework of this training? The Grotowskian training, it's kind of precise in certain ways. It has you can formalize some of those exercises. Like they claim even like objectivity, it's not objective, but they claim like to be reproducible, like in terms of like how they condition the body, how the training is kind of preparing the body in certain ways. And we wanted to see whether those claims, like at least with the people, with the subjectivities that we gathered and with the team, whether there is a match in there, and whether like this subjective also reflection together with this practice that is created, together with all this kind of quantitative data, whether there is some truth in all that. In the end, we ended up not with a small data set, but with a big data set that, so we wanted actually to open everything and like to share with artists and like basically create artworks based on these data sets. But we stopped having money, so like basically a lot of that work just vanished. But we tried, and then the next iteration I tried to be smaller because of this reason, and more critical actually of the things, and kind of scaling down. I thought it was important to scaling down, because if you really want to be self-reflective about the politics of practice, it's nice to have like a smaller scale where you can see like what are the critical points. And I think this is kind of nice scenario also for like talking about legislation and AI. I think maybe it's a recipe for companies who are working with this kind of data production pipelines also to kind of think more embodied and more situated and kind of document their processes like this. But of course, then there are money considerations, because like this kind of type of practices are expensive in terms of time and resources. So yeah.
That's great, thanks. And like that kind of template, or everyone working to the same template, even if it's quite lightly held, and then engineering in specific time that everyone's agreed on to do it, is like super relevant to a lot of the stuff I'm poking out. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now Marc, por aquí.
Thank you very much. What's striking to me is also because you're breaking something which is core of Grotowski, right? Like he's kind of escaping from technology and escaping from the machinery of labor and industrial labor to find, I don't know, logics of devotion, no? Like another way of placing the body in the world. For me, it's striking to think while watching this that for centuries, humans have developed tools that always had a clear connection to the body, because you had to use them, to grasp them, to push and pull on them, right? Like to work on them physically. And then we came up with this strange thing, which is the computer, which is completely like bodiless. And for me, like watching now this kind of work, I was really like wondering, because at first I thought, how difficult is it to to move while knowing that all your movements must be encoded by the machine, because I feel that's quite restrictive in a way, no? Like you become a bit like this robot dance in a way. But then I thought, no, but maybe it's about teaching training the computer how is it to have a body. So I don't know, for me, I guess the question is how, where do you place like the focus? Is it on the human body, or is it in the absence of this computing body? And what does it mean for a computer not to have a body and yet react to one or several?
Excellent question. This is like an amazing question. So This is a question actually, like we kind of looked at ourselves like a conundrum, like how can we actually what is the body of the machine? Is this voice that comes really disembodied? Is this a parasite actually? Maybe it's a parasite that it's kind of living on the human body, and then it's kind of like, it's a mutation, as I said, like it's becoming like transforming the body into a hybrid, it's an augmentation. But also like because I was so interested like in escaping these technical imaginaries. Actually I had a great team to do that with, like Mika Satomi, she's amazing, and the work she does, working also like with textiles, so like with soft machines, with machines that are more like clothes, like coming from different origins, like of what technology can be. So like we also speculated like what technology could have become, like if we wouldn't have been going into this patriarchal kind of direction, like hard industrial oriented thing. So how the machines would be like actually encoded in our clothes, like it's like soft practices. And then we looked at the training, and we kind of like by involving the whole team and also like the performers and ourselves, like I'm also trained, so looking at those questions, how not to restrict the body, like it's important to build something that is not restrictive, like in real time for the performers. So like we designed things together. The first prototypes were bad, so like it always happens. So like the things that they were wearing there, like in running, we were running in the forest, they didn't even work, all of them. Like half of them were just props. They were like just fake there. Like sometimes they would blink, and yeah, that data set is very incomplete. Looking back at it, but it became part of the story. So like it's kind of a legend that grows, like in a way, like by having this ritual, as I said, to put the harness on. We all had kind of colored harnesses and running with them through the forest, like it became something. And we had questions and discussions about those things. For example, at the beginning, we didn't have like a real-time feedback. So that thing was just gathering data when it worked. The performer said, like, we need some feedback, like what's the feedback gonna be? And I was saying, like, we don't have a feedback at this stage, like we wait and see like what the research brings or what this data. So it was a process of negotiation, basically. I don't think we find the most, it's not about an optimal solution. It's also like about like this kind of imaginative journey, so yeah.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. I have some maybe technical questions of things I didn't totally get. How were you working with certain parts of the systems? So in this first piece that you were in the forest running and you're gathering data, just that there was like the heartbeat, like then it didn't work and you didn't get, but what was the original idea? What are the different things that you wanted to gather in order to then analyze afterwards? Even if you didn't really go to the answer, what were the things that you really wanted to have in this?
So yeah, as I said, that was more about the process and about bringing those two communities together than actually like creating the perfect device. Like if we wanted to get the perfect device, maybe we would have like iPhones linked to our necks and kind of like doing all the data gathering through iPhones. But we wanted actually to deconstruct the process of making and see like what different sensors can go in there, and also like seeing like, do those sensors make sense? Some of them, they didn't make sense at all. The heartbeats, I think they were interesting. There are just some numbers, like now we have them, but without the context, they don't mean anything. It was heartbeats, it was voice, it was acceleration. Yeah, they were like, and we went through the process as a team to design those things, like to think about at least like some of the people, they didn't have experience in computer science or in maths, they were just coming from performance. So like even like this act of reflecting upon sensors and what sensors we are choosing and how they work and how this kind of data gathering, it was like an act of self-disclosure and also an act of like here, like in live coding. So like trying to educate people to kind of like make things.
And another, sorry, the synthesis of the voice in the last piece. How was it done? Was it like a neural model, or was it like all this sample based? Like, because it was very interesting how it reacted to the pressure. What was the synthesis?
There were different modes, and we experienced the different modes. And actually, like sometimes, like yeah, as you know, like experimentations come from glitches, and beautiful moments come from glitches. So originally, like we took this kind of voder, and from the physical shape, there is this kind of algorithm that is kind of simulating the voder. And we had like a very basic simulation of that algorithm, like for the vowels. And then we had just a pose mapping from like a machine learning, very simple, like mapping the poses, like from the points on the body that were actually taken by those stretch sensors, which were very imprecise. Like everything that is self-made and like custom-made is so imprecise. And also like that's the beauty of it, because like the stretch sensors, they are getting tired the same way as the performers are getting tired. Like they kind of, that's why we calibrate every time, because like they stretch all the time, like, and they give different numbers. So yeah, we had that machine learning part, which was just for the mapping of, and then we had the simulation for the voder. That's one. And then we had the granular synthesis, where we kind of used samples from all the voices. Sometimes we swapped voices on different people, and that was like not a performative experience, but was like a very interesting experience, psychological for the people wearing other people's voices, because they could speak with others people. It was emotional, maybe. So yeah, we had the granular synthesis, and I think a few more options which I forgot. Yeah, we played with. So basically, the voder is kind of simulated also like a bit of a cut. So like only the human this part of the voice, the way the air travels through your vocal system. And we try to kind of change air with noise, with sound, with water, like with different things. We play with different things, so yeah.
I wanted to ask also, like in the AI models that you were using, did the performers get to change or decide how were these models working? I don't know if they decide together how to change parameters. I understand like in the performance, no, like changing this granular synthesis and so on, but maybe like if you go back, no, like I don't know if there was like this conversation on how this is going to work, and I don't know, I wanted to know.
We tried to have as much as this conversation as possible, so that was that's why the reason why we all kind of came to the same physical space together. So like everyone in the same studio, rehearsal studio. And then, yeah, there will be like indeed like people working on sound and people working on interaction design and like people kind of like warming up and like doing things together. But Grotowski again says like even sharing the space, it's kind of inspiring and cross-pollinating. So, and then there were discussions, yeah. But the change of the things, like, yeah, there is a politics usually, like all the time. So, like, I don't know, like, if everything was completely flat hierarchy, because knowledge takes time to travel. At the original stages, we didn't have the option for the performers themselves to change directly the design of the system or the interface.
Well, maybe the last question, and then we can continue with some beers that.
So hopefully this is a relevant question this time.
Yeah.
But what you were saying about feedback and wanting feedback from this data collection and things, it got me thinking about, I mean, one of the things that's most important to me in my own practice, working with sound and embodiment and feedback, is the haptic feedback that you get with your body when you are moving through something or experiencing a process. And so I wonder if you can connect a bit for us the way that maybe the Kartovsky Institute was putting a priority on this physical experience,
yeah,
but how that maybe is somewhat disconnected, or there's a departure, it seems like, when you're in a choreographic mode where there isn't a whole lot to interact with except sound. And so you're missing some maybe of that physical or that haptic feedback that changes the body. And I think that's a key component of an embodied experience. So I wonder if that was part of your questioning and how you approached that.
That's a very good question, thank you. So I think there is not one single way of implementing something. That was our poetic interpretation of Grotowski. So we didn't think that the sound has to be made so explicitly visible through haptic. We thought that it was present in space through the vibrations that sound creates nevertheless. So like we basically took more literal, this kind of embodied vibration of the sound in space, and encouraging this kind of embodied listening. I mean, like, yeah, from the performance theory, like you can, if you are sensitive enough, somehow like you can experience vibrations just from the sound somehow. So like there was a bit of haptic, like even in the voice that was here. So like it was a bit of a haptic vibratory quality. We didn't amplify it that much, but that's another option of design. So that's a very good question. The speaker was here, so that was the immediate, because like, yeah, we also thought about like, yeah, so that's the difference between our self-made, one of the differences between our motion capture and kind of like other motion capture system, like it was, yeah, on the body.
Well, thank you so much, Diana, and thank you for your participation and being here. And thank you to Owok again, to the Darts group, to Enrique, and we as a Axolot team also, thanks for everything. And also we want to invite you, because now at 7 there's a performances from Lotta, Aishan, Shelly, and Christina, so we invite you to come. Also tomorrow we have 2 workshops with Susan, who's here. Also talking about body and relationships with the technology, and Ivan Paz, the second workshop about handcrafting AI. So please join us, and thank you. And what? Yeah, sorry. And the Algo Rave Saturday. So yeah.